Good evening, everybody. It's a late start tonight. I know that's kind of common for Fridays, but especially on a week where I go to... Sorry, I'm enjoying a little coffee. On a week where I go to Dirty Rectangles, I do try to make sure that I get a good session in for broadcasting. It feels like this has been building for a while, but today at work was particularly difficult. And I don't want to know what it's been about the last couple of months, but things have not always been that good. But then there have been some very good things to happen. For those of you who didn't get a chance to see, on Tuesday, we did a special stream of Cultist Simulator. So for those of you who were wondering why I've not done the Dancer DLC yet, that is only true for this channel. While some of you were enjoying the Elder Scrolls playthrough, I was wrapping up what proved to be a very enjoyable time on Steam, broadcasting the new Cultist Simulator DLC for launch. Obviously a very big thank you to Weather Factory for inviting me back, and quite a few new people seem to find the channel as a result of that. So if you happen to be watching, whether through YouTube or whether through the live broadcast, and you came from the Cultist Simulator stream, it is worth remembering that I am not an exclusive Cultist Simulator streamer. I don't think if I were to put myself in a particular box, it would most likely be a strategy game player more than anything, but that hasn't stopped me from playing Cultist Simulator, and that hasn't stopped me from playing other many enjoyable games. I like good games, and I like original games. So that, welcome, and I hope you find it diverting while you are here. But if you only want the Cultist Simulator content, I completely understand that. And those will likely be Wednesdays for live broadcasts. And in terms of when they appear on YouTube, I try to make it... Once upon a time it was within 24 hours, but the big thing is that I believe I need to make sure that there is a certain period of time between when I make something available on Twitch and when I make it available elsewhere. So to make sure that I respect those guidelines. And again, this is one of these ones where it's like people talk and say those sorts of things, and I really should be sorting out exactly what it is for myself. But I basically go for the longest period of time that I've heard that is acceptable and I think is reasonable. The prohibition is definitely not exclusive to Twitch. They would have to give me a lot more than what they are right now for that to be true. But yeah, so there is a little bit of a lag between me doing a broadcast and putting it on YouTube, but the VODs are available here on Twitch as well. So anyways, with all of that in mind, obviously I am sorry for starting a bit later, but I hope it is worthwhile, because we're going to be continuing Mass Effect 2. And I'm going to try and talk a little bit more about the world of Mass Effect 2 and some of the things that I'm seeing on the planets, because I feel like it might even just be me falling, or like starting to get into my own head a little bit on these things. But I remember Kite said something really nice when I was playing Crusader Kings 2. Well, I will talk with Jack then. But yeah, you're talking with Kite. He did this really. He had this really nice thing to say about the Crusader Kings streams as well as the Assassin's Creed streams, where something to the effect of, I always learn something when I'm in System Shock's channel. And that's always very nice to hear. I mean, it's always nice to hear compliments about yourself. But I'm starting to worry that I talk a bit less about some of the ideas or the themes or just some of the things that I used to in terms of games, especially when there's some level of educational content. I'm, I think, a little surprised in myself, especially about Mass Effect 2, because I remember when I played this game, I was so taken by how many things in this game I could sort of make the mapping from my experience as a player to the concepts that I thought they were trying to communicate in the real world. And my experience of Mass Effect 2 so far has been just sort of to go in and play and react to the story rather than bring something of my own. So hopefully I'll do a little bit of a better job of sort of talking about some of the ideas that I think are going on behind here. Although one thing I am happy about is I've been able to talk a little bit more about the cinematic techniques that they're using. I hope somebody else finds that useful, because I don't know, it has enhanced my enjoyment of the game quite a bit to see how they tell the story visually.
I got thoughts like little bugs crawling in and out of my head. I can't stop them. You know I have a history with Cerberus. You know how far back it goes?
I'll listen to anything you have to say, Jack.
Your pal, the elusive man? Never seen him before, but Cerberus raised me. First thing I remember is my cell door in a Cerberus base. They did experiments, drugged me, tortured me. Whatever chance I had to be normal, they stole it by trying to turn me into some super biotic. The doctors, the other kids, every one of them hated me. They let me suffer.
What did they hope to gain by torturing a little girl?
It was something about pain breaking down mental barriers and how it might clear the way for a more biotic power. I'm sure there was a payoff due at some point, but I wasn't gonna see it. I was wired up in a cell.
They tortured you just to see if they could make a strong biotic? That's it?
Wasn't in a position to ask, Shepard. All I know is a little girl crying in a cell, begging for the pain to stop.
What did they hope to gain by torturing
Sorry,
you?
I have another option.
I'm sure there was a payoff due at some point, but I wasn't gonna see it. I was wired up in a cell.
I'm not entirely sure I want to say that.
There were other children in the base?
I didn't know much about them. I was kept separate. They hated me just like everyone else there. When I broke out, I had to fight through them all. I showed them, but there's a loose end I need to deal with.
How did you get out of there?
There was some kind of emergency, and I made a break for it. The other kids came out of their cells and attacked me. So did the guards. I just killed everything in my way and ran. Guess my biotics had developed faster than they thought. I managed to get a shuttle off the ground. Drifted until a freighter picked me up. The crew used me, then sold me. That's my uplifting escape story.
You're absolutely certain that Cerberus was running the facility?
I was a kid, but I wasn't dumb. I know how to listen. It was Cerberus. Don't care how far down the chain it was. They thought they were so clever. Turns out, mess with someone's head enough and you can turn a scared kid into an all-powerful bitch. Fucking idiots.
I'm going to talk to the elusive man, and he'd better have some answers.
He'll just deny everything. That's not what I'm after anyway. I found the coordinates in your files. I want to go to the Telton facility on Pragia where they tortured and drugged me. I want to go to the center of the place, my cell. I want to deploy a big fucking bomb, and I want to watch from orbit when it goes.
You've lived with this your whole life. Why do this now?
Like I said, I found the coordinates in your files. You can't expect me to just sit on information like that.
Attacking our allies is gonna derail our mission. Not a smart move.
The files say it was shut down after my escape. It's been abandoned for years. They going to care if I blow up a garbage dump?
I'll set a course for Pragia.
I owe you, Shepard.
So, as a justification for my very heroic Shepard agreeing to go and blow up the base, my main, sort of, one of the main reasons why I want to do that is mostly one of the decisions, or one of the sort of the decision rules maybe that I've been trying to push forward with.
I hear that Rupert is actually cooking some good meals lately.
Yeah, right. That scunner couldn't serve a good haggis if his life depended on it.
But all haggis tastes like ass anyway.
Aye, but in the right hands, it can taste like mighty fine ass.
So yeah, I have pretty consistently done everything I can to upset and disrupt Cerberus every time. So yeah, that's my reasoning for it. One thing that I didn't really appreciate before, and I wonder if this was a decision, I sort of get the impression that Jack is sort of this mirror image of Miranda. in the sense that, Miranda's just, sort of engineered by her father to sort of be perfect, and she sort of turned that in on itself and became her own person, whereas Jack seems to be almost this product. It's sort of a shaped individual, but almost shaped to be broken. In this case where Miranda, it's this meticulous care in terms of sort of sculpting something. Jack, it's almost this inversion of that and sort of tearing everything down to create an extremely powerful individual. So I'm curious if that'll... I mean, again, I've played the game before, but I don't remember how much... I don't remember the exact details of these stories, but I'll be interested to see if that gets developed or if I'm just sort of, reading too far into the tea leaves. Hello, Smishat.
Shepard, what can I do for you?
Is the new Normandy giving you any trouble?
Please, Shepard, I'm a Quarian. Give me a chunk of scrap metal, a circuit board, and some element zero, and I'll have it making precision jumps. I was worried about working with Cerberus engineers, but they know what they're doing, and they've been very polite.
How's the Normandy running?
Say what you will about Cerberus, they know how to build ships. The Normandy's running even better than before. I don't know if it can stand up to a collector attack, though. I'm researching some ideas that might help.
Can you do anything to give the Normandy an edge over a collector ship?
Definitely. With the right supplies, I can fortify our shields. The collectors cut through the Normandy's barriers immediately last time. My upgrades might give us a better chance.
That's not what I want. There we go. The Normandy represents the cutting edge of Cerberus fleet technology, but further improvements are possible and could assist you in succeeding in missions. Discover possible enhancements by talking to your crew. Multicore shielding. The rapidly oscillating kinetic obstructions of cyclonic barrier technology, CBT, are added to the ship. This should help the ship survive blasts like those that destroyed the first Normandy. I think we got enough.
Shepard, what can I do for you?
Can you do anything to give the Normandy an edge over a collector ship?
My shield fortification will help, but I don't think there is much more I can do.
Have you got time to talk?
We didn't really have time to chat while taking out Geth on Haestrom, did we? I can't believe so many people died. Thank you again for getting Rieger out alive. All for data about stars blowing up. I hope the Admiralty Board gets some use out of it.
So the stars blowing up, I forgot to mention. I can't remember if I mentioned last stream, but that sort of feels like one of the more direct references to Starflight. But I've kind of got Starflight on the brain every time I play this game, so...
Have you heard any word about Cal Rieger? Did he survive his injuries?
He sent me a message. It looks like he'll make a full recovery. Anytime you get a suit puncture, it's a matter of luck. Rieger got out with a relatively minor infection.
Tell me about the fleet's Admiralty Board.
It's one of two major political powers among my people. The admirals make decisions related to defense or
Hey, Jamie
immediate
Sam.
action. They also handle major criminal charges, like treason. The other political power is the Conclave, a group of representatives from each ship. They make most of our laws and fleet decisions.
Any news yet on the data you sent?
I'm not likely to hear anything for a while, or on an unsecured channel for that matter.
Having any trouble settling back in on the Normandy?
I like the quiet. I miss the old faces, though. Presley, Engineer Adams, all of them. It doesn't seem right having Cerberus in charge of this ship. Are you sure working for them is the right thing to do?
I caught some tension back on Freedom's Progress and again when you first came aboard. What happened between Cerberus and the Quarians?
They attacked one of our ships, the Idena. It seems they were attempting to kill or control a young human biotic who was on the fleet. I don't really know the details. I do know that Cerberus made an enemy of the Quarian people.
I fully expect them to betray us at some point, and we'll be ready.
I'm glad to hear that, Shepard. Just let me know how I can help. For now, I should get back to work. Thanks for coming by.
Okay. I think I'm going to take a quick I'm going to take a quick run through all of the different characters. I'll do a reading of sort of the codices and such maybe after we get a mission down. Because I know I was doing... I'm just trying to remember. I know I was doing some mining, and I think I ran into a mission, so I stopped. But I genuinely don't remember. So, and I'm also pretty sure there's nobody in the crew quarters for me to talk to.
They lost contact with New Canton. Might be the collectors.
Did your family get out of there?
I don't know. There's no communications yet.
I'm sure they're safe. We'll see.
How much do you want to bet
Rupert,
that...
something different with tonight's meal. Seems like you put in more food and less ass.
Yeah, keep talking.
How much do you want to bet that Garrus is still in the middle of his calibrations?
Shepard, need me for something?
Have you got a minute?
Can it wait for a bit? I'm in the middle of some calibrations.
So,
Talk to you later, Garrus.
I'll be here if you need me.
on the odd chance that some of you haven't had to do a macroeconomics course at a somewhat advanced level, some of the models undergo something known as calibration, and depending on your feelings on that matter, it's either where they do the magical voodoo to make it all work and it's still not very credible, or it's the thing that makes the whole thing work. But I've always I don't do a lot of macro stuff, and I don't really do like real business cycle or anything like that, which would need it, but I've always really wanted to do a model like that, and somebody, comes by, it's like, hey, can I ask you something? And, just look both ways. I'm like, sorry, I'm in the middle of some calibrations, and nobody would get it.
Time, I'd like to go to Ilium and relocate my sister's family.
Oh, that's right,
I'll
we
let
already
you know,
got this
Miranda.
mission.
Of course, Commander.
We gotta blow up your boss's facility first, because I like Jack more than you. Alright. That's not entirely true, actually. I thought Miranda was a really interesting character the first time I played it, but obviously I am very fond of the character Tali, and basically the Quarians in general. We've got a mission from Jacob. I don't think we've gotten the one from Morden yet.
Shepard, how can I help?
Have you got a minute to talk?
Later, better. Think I've cured Joker's condition. Simple treatment would... No. Would cause liver failure. Never mind. Start from scratch. Anything else?
I'll let you work.
We'll be here if you need me.
Alright. I think you've all been patient enough with me. We can move on to whatever mission I ended off here. Dig site. Dig site. Oh, Blue Suns. Okay, well. Be a minor mission, but we can get some done. I'm going to try and go for the full duration. Obviously, that'll mean a late night for me, but it is the weekend, so I do have some stuff that I need to do, but I can, I've got a whole weekend ahead, so as long as I manage my time well. Alright, I feel like I'm obligated to bring Tali at this point. So we've got heavy pistols and shotguns. And... see, Tali doesn't have particularly strong biotics, so I need to bring either Jacob for his biotics, Miranda, or Jack. It's a little shotgun and pistol heavy, but that's fine because I'm pretty much only a sniper, so I think I'll accept these. I don't really feel like I need to do the Inferno Grenade, so... And because basically anything that's an NPC, I'm gonna auto level. I always like these sort of holographic, like whether it's the keyboards, whether it's the armor. I've always sort of liked sort of the holographic look of those guys. It was one thing I really liked about the game Frozen Cortex as well, but I don't think it was ever really. I don't think it was ever really explained in Mass Effect in terms of what they are. Maybe we'll find it in the. It might be in some of the lore that I didn't read, but. Oh, well, there's quite a lot of these. Ah, oh, damn it. I don't think I need to waste the sniper shot on the... All-female squad. What the hell is this? Some kind of social justice stream? If there was Lady Krogan, I would have it in the team. How you doing, Johnny Big Time? I didn't even think of that until you pointed it out, but that's fine. My prime minister keeps insisting on putting the term feminist in front of everything that the government does, so I figured I would get in on the action. What do you think of the use of film grain in this game? To be honest, Sean Bean, I haven't really noticed it. I've never been bothered. So, I personally kind of think that grain is overrated in terms of achieving a filmic look. Even when I was working in movies, like so I knew a bunch of people who were like obsessed with film, and like if it was an independent film, they'd be like, oh no, we have to shoot on film, we have to budget film, you know. It's like, well, you know, you can get some better lights, you know, the thing will look better if you put the money in on like, no, it has to be shot on film. I'm like, you know, poorly lit film looks kind of crappy. It's like, no, it's film is the best. Spielberg said he'll always use film, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, can you just like buy, you know, 1,000 feet of Kodak, whatever the hell you want, and like we get the budget we need to do what you're asking? Like you can take it, you know, every night before you go to sleep, you can stroke it, you can talk about how wonderful it is, and like we can make a decent movie. But I mean, again, like I have fairly strong opinions about these things. Nice. I don't think that hurt anyone. Anyway, sorry guys. Here I am playing the game and everything. But yeah, so I don't know, like there's a movie called Pi that I was talking about a while ago. It's an older movie. If you guys have ever seen Requiem for a Dream or The Wrestler or Black Swan, The Fountain. I know Johnny loved that movie. But Darren Aronofsky, it was like the first feature that he made. It's a pretty decent movie, and it's shot in black and white and has this really sort of gritty, like, all those movies made, even Pi? But yeah, like that one has this really, like, grainy, dark, high contrast look, which I thought really worked well. And so I think the film aesthetic and specifically the grain can be a really appealing thing. And I know on a couple of 3D shots that I've shown to people, they commented on, and like this was totally not intentional, but just some of the rendering artifacts sort of looked a bit like film grain, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of does. Like I'll leave it in there. But like I've always really liked crisp, clean. In some cases, I almost like hyper-real images because I think it really pops, and especially when you know what you're doing, it can really take people into an experience that that they don't forget. But this is one of the big reasons why I keep harping on this idea of games shouldn't necessarily aspire to be like movies, because like, you know, a VR game is not going to be like Avatar. Avatar was a hell of a ride in the theater. But like imagine all of the stuff that VR is going to be able to do on its own that's so much better than film. And if they just want to try and aspire to do the things that film does, then it will necessarily be limited. So yeah, I don't mind it. I'll be honest that I haven't really noticed it that much, but I think, you know, I find it inoffensive. Commander Santiago, hope you are doing well. We require your services once again on the transport of ourselves, our equipment, and our recovered artifacts. I have dispatched our representative to meet you regarding the details of the transaction. Given the sensitive nature of our cargo, we expect discretion in this matter. Dr. Farron, Chief Researcher, Exogeny Special Projects. Incoming messages. Let's make a deal. Dr. Farron, of course you can count on us to offer you you escort and transportation. We have sent men and ships your way in good faith. Commander Vito Santiago, Co-Executive Officer, Blue Suns. And I am doing well, Johnny Big Time, especially with you here. I was definitely not feeling that great after work. Today was particularly taxing. I have a feeling that there have been some changes in my department, and particularly who I am reporting to, that will lead to a very difficult work environment for me. So I am now sort of focusing on how I can either navigate it or how I can... So like one of the big things for me is that there's different departments, and I know that there are departments that value what I do very much. And sort of my feeling is that if I'm in a situation where I feel that my existing work will not really flourish, it's probably better for me to go to a place where I'm sort of adding the maximum value. Yeah, no problem, Jamie Sam. Sorry I didn't have a little bit more for you to watch, but there's always the VOD. I hope you have a good time wherever you are, and we'll catch you next time. I appreciate you hanging on. You can turn it off if you want, but I got too used to it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have a problem. I know there are people who are always like, you have to turn down film grain and motion blur. I'm kind of... I don't like it when games, like... I really don't like it when games go a bit conservative on their settings and like put me on high instead of ultra when I know that I can get like 60 frames in most, if not all cases. But beyond that, I kind of take the view of like they put the features in the game. I'm assuming it's because they wanted me to experience that. And I very rarely encounter things in games where I'm like, this was a terrible graphical decision that the developers made, and I'm going to disable that. You get him, Tali. But yeah, so again, like obviously it can be perceived as, and maybe it really is, just a, you know, I'm taking my ball and leaving. But I don't know, like, I chose the specific department that I was in, and I had a really good manager who was very open to sort of new ideas and finding better ways of doing things, and I am getting the impression that that is not the case of this current group. And I will be able to do competent work, but that doesn't mean that I will be happy. And I happen to know that the department that I just left, I was on a rotation there, need good people, and it is one of these very weird cases where it is a field that I studied in school. It happens that the prof at the school that I went to is basically the guy in that field in terms of like index number. It's, you know, like he is absolutely huge. It's a specific narrow area that is not sexy, but I like a lot. And that department has difficulty retaining people. So it's sort of one, and they really liked specifically the work that I did for them there. So it's sort of one of these cases where it's like, I can do mediocre work that I'm not entirely sure will be appreciated at a home division, or I can go back to the place that needs people and seems to find a lot of value in what I do. Like, it's one of these cases where it's a little bit of a no-brainer. But we'll see how it turns out. I'm not ready to make any decisions yet. But basically, that's why I had the late start. I just kind of wanted to sit down and process stuff. I didn't even like get any I normally like getting some reading done and stuff like that, but I just kind of went under the covers and I just lay down and I was like, I'm just gonna feel depressed for a while, and then I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna get stuff done. So that's the sad story, but it's the honest one. But anyways, I'm feeling all right now. Thank you for asking, Johnny. Lieutenant Locke, once the artifact is secured and in transit, your orders are to take your men and rendezvous with Captain Voorhees around the MSV Strontium Mule in the Aaron Larkin system in the Omega Nebula. Assist Voorhees with the capture if needed. That's all good. I mean, I remember you talking about the place you were working at before, Johnny, and like, I think you can have a lot of sympathy for the fact that when some things happen, like, even if you are not in a great work environment, it requires a little bit of a break for you to like really pull the trigger on a new thing, and I don't want to do that. I am in fact considering leaving government altogether and going to work in the private sector instead. And I'm sort of debating about whether or not that might be to try some things in gaming, or to there's one which is actually a highly disreputable business but really needs the thing that I can do. But yeah, I'm considering my options, and I'm trying to make sure that if I'm doing, like, so in government you don't get necessarily paid as much as you do in the private sector, so I'm trying to make sure that the trade-off in terms of payment and time and overall satisfaction with what I'm doing is right. And I'm trying not to get stuck in a situation where I get comfortable with the status quo. Oh wow, they kept this animation. Recovered Prothean relic. Eliminated Blue Sun's presence at dig site. Experience gained 125. Credits 3750. Total 7500. 500 element 0 found. Okay, cool. That was a very short mission that I made longer just by virtue of my babbling. I think that's true in most cases, Smishet. I think the usual deal with government work is that you don't necessarily get paid that well, but they take care of you when you retire. The problem is, it's very easy for certain, like, so with...
Commander, you've received a new message at your private terminal.
I'll take care of it later. One of the problems is that if you have a poorly managed department and people feel like they don't have opportunities, or generally they don't find it worth working. So one of the reasons why government sort of takes care of you in retirement, you have a problem where basically, like, you want people to have knowledge and retain it. But obviously in terms of government, you're not necessarily always going to be able to pay as much as sort of profit maximizing firms. And so I think one of the ways that they can do it is if you have sort of a decent retirement package. This aligns the incentives, right? So in this case, you build up a lot of experience and a lot of institutional knowledge within government areas. And while your individual yearly salary will not be as high as if you went somewhere else, you're taken care of in retirement. And so it's on net a good thing for you. And what this does is it makes sure that people stay and sort of build up their knowledge rather than taking a couple of years of government experience and then going to the private sector with a more impressive resume. But the drawback with this is that if you wind up in a department, and it usually, in my view, a lot of the directors really know what they're doing and they're really good people. But if you wind up having a manager who makes things uncomfortable for you or doesn't support you, especially if you're focused on like long-term career goals. So like obviously I'm sort of at the beginning of my stage, so I want to be considering in terms of where advancement comes from and what I can do, sort of what niches I can do. I'd like to get a little bit of a research pipeline built if I can. And if somebody seems to be squashing those kinds of ambitions, this doesn't mean that, I think I'm too good to do some kind of work or something like that. It's more of a matter of trying to make sure that I'm in the right fit to make sure I can do the best work that I can. You really only need a couple of people like that, and all of a sudden all of these, potentially very good recruits or these potentially useful employees wind up going and looking for other places. So it's a really precarious situation that the government finds itself in. But I think that's the reason why a lot of government jobs tend to be long-term ones, is that the people in there are not there because they want a huge salary. It's because they sort of like the long-term benefits.
What's this area of the ship?
This is the FTL communications
I
room.
want to talk to the
In
elusive
addition
man
to
about
interfacing
this
with the FTL comm network,
place I'm going to
Normandy is
blow
fitted
up.
with a quantum entanglement communicator linked to the elusive man's office. This allows lag-free communication even when you operate off the comm grid.
That's all for now.
Logging you out, Shepard.
All right, I can't talk. All right, I'm going to get a couple of shout-outs done, then we'll read some codex entries, and then we're going to move on to the remaining missions inside the area. So,
Morden requests to see you.
oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll... You know what? I'll still get the shout-outs out of the way. So we've got Johnny Big Time in the chat. Johnny Big Time is my favorite caster on Twitch. In fact, I think this is going to be one of these times that I show you a clip of him. I'll bring that up. But Johnny and I have been playing some... I think Johnny Big Time... I'm trying to figure out whether or not I should say this, but Johnny Big Time and I have been playing some stuff off cast, and I'm debating about whether or not to put it up as like a stream series or not. I'm genuinely not sure whether or not it's going to be any fun, and that's largely because of my contribution towards it rather than Johnny's. But one thing I've always liked about Johnny off cast is that it's really hard to get people to go outside of their comfort zone in terms of games. And yet Johnny has played Chaos Reborn with me. He's played Divinity Original Sin with me. I'm hoping to dupe him into playing. Damn it! What was it? Twilight Struggle. And I don't know. Like So one of the things that just really, I think, really amazes me is that he very naturally picks up games really quickly. He's really good at them. Like I remember playing Chaos Reborn, and I kind of consider myself to be pretty decent at like strategy stuff. Like he was definitely giving me a run for my money within like a couple of rounds. Now he's really good. So he's a very active streamer. He's really good at sort of keeping the energy going. He's always got something like funny or witty to say. And he seems to also be able to find just these moments inside of games that are really amusing or really memorable. He's like probably the most clippable streamer that I know. So I always like shouting him out because I always find new games. I find games that maybe I would have overlooked, and he convinced. So like I'm going to play Titanfall 2 because of some stuff that I've seen him do. But I think one of the things that really generated, I never got to see him do this live all that much, but his Grand Theft Auto playthrough generated some great moments. So here is Johnny Big Time giving us Grand Theft Auto 5.
There you go, Chop. Oh, get the ball. Chop! Go get the ball, Chop!
Go get the ball, Chop.
No! He's alive! You bitch!
I'll kill all you punk. You hood, Chop.
That is Johnny Big Time. If you have not checked him out, please do so. He's a really wonderful guy. It's, again, totally different styles from me. I'm a little too I'm a little too slow to do everything, to be totally honest, but Johnny never ceases to impress me in terms of his ability to just get stuff done and be fun to watch. His love of dogs is one of the main reasons why I chose that one on there. But if you want to see that stuff, he's been doing Call of Duty Black Ops 4 most recently. One thing that's interesting, I'm slightly, so like I did not like Call of Duty Black Ops 3 that much. I thought the story was kind of dumb. And I don't really play those games for multiplayer. Hey, the Eyes of Sin, how you doing? Oop. Let me take a quick moment here and also mention the Eyes of Sin. The Eyes of Sin is the one who's responsible for all those emotes that some of you have. But she doesn't get to stream as often as she would like. But what was I gonna say? I completely got sidetracked. Oh yeah, so I Call of Duty Black Ops 3 wasn't exactly for me, and I know the big headline feature for Black Ops 4 was their Battle Royale mode, which I know Johnny has been playing a lot of. But I think the thing that interested me the most about it is that, okay, I need to shut this down, otherwise it's gonna yell at me. But I think one of the things that's so interesting is that Battle Royale, like, so Call of Duty Black Ops 4 has proved to me how slow Battle Royale games really are. I think it's one of the reasons why I don't like them that much. And I think a highly underrated part about Black Ops 4 is the fact that all of the other multiplayer modes look really good and really fun. Like, I probably wouldn't be willing to spend that much on Black Ops 4, but Johnny's actually been selling me on the fact that I think going multiplayer only was the right thing to do for that game, and that everything that's not Battle Royale is actually a genuinely good shooter and probably something that more people should be paying attention to. So that's one of the things I like about Johnny, is like he's one of the great examples of somebody who's very, I think in some ways very different from me, but I get a really important perspective. Like, I would have just been sitting here talking about how bad Call of Duty is without ever having played it, and now that I've seen Johnny go through it, I know I can't say that. So it's a nice little check on some sort of my assumptions about how the world works. So yeah, I mean, with that in mind, that's with all due respect to Battle Royale fans. Like, it's a huge genre, and I remember when my friend didn't like MOBAs, and I was obsessed with Dota 2. Like, to each their own. There's no disputing taste, but yeah, I've not been able to really get into Battle Royale. There's some things about the structure of those kinds of games that just don't appeal to me. But Johnny is really the sort of person who has been able to sort of sell me on watching that sort of stuff. I watched plenty of people I really tried to support just go down the path of playing Fortnite all the time, and it was tedious. And Johnny is the only person I know who has been able to play Battle Royale games and constantly keep me entertained, which I think is a testament to his talent as a broadcaster. But I will leave it for your judgment. I do strongly recommend that you check him out. So all right, so let me Sovereign, here we go. Oh, come on.
The flagship of the rogue ex-Spectre, Saren Arterius. Sovereign is a devastating dreadnought of unprecedented power. At 2 kilometers long, Sovereign was believed to have been powered by a gigantic Element Zero core, the only energy source potent enough to land the massive vessel on a planet. During the Eden Prime War, the ship unleashed its peerless destructive force against which Citadel Council ships were defenseless. With a virtually indestructible flagship and a crew of fanatic Geth and Krogan, Saren nearly succeeded in wiping out all his enemies. Only the resourcefulness and bravery of the commander and crew of the SSV Normandy stopped him.
That's me.
The overwhelming power of Sovereign ignited bizarre speculation in tabloid media that the vessel was sent by extragalactic invaders, or was, despite indeterminate photographic evidence at best, a single giant robot. Some sources even claimed that Sovereign was alive. Such conjecture, however baseless, remains to this day.
That's a really interesting one that they you can kind of tell from the recording which ones were from Mass Effect and which ones are from Mass Effect 2, but it's kind of neat that they've updated the codex to reflect the propaganda that the councils put out. Okay, planets and locations.
Freedom's Progress colony was once a typical Alliance settlement, but following complete communications blackout and its apparent destruction, is now a lightning rod for anxiety and dread in the galactic human community. The communications blackout followed an upgrade of the colony's small military force, supplemented by mechs and security drones, with high-powered, tower-mounted Guardian lasers. Colonists complained about construction cost overruns, delays, noise, and damage to the local environment. They also feared the defense array could be seen as provocative to their world's neighbors. Such fears may not have been baseless. Authorities have still offered no explanation for the communications blackout, fueling rumors of plagues, natural disasters, or a cult-inspired mass suicide. Located in strategically insignificant space, Freedom's Progress colony had once offered residents spectacular rainbows, lush marshlands, and stunning mountain ranges. Its potential as an agricultural settlement and tourism wonderland rivaled that of any Alliance colony. Before the Geth Revolt 300 years ago, the Quarians colonized Haestrom to study the mysterious instability of its sun, which threatened premature eruption into a red giant. As a scientific outpost of minimal military value, Haestrom was ill-equipped to repel Geth forces during the insurrection and fell quickly under their control. Captured Geth planetary survey data indicates that despite sustaining damage during the war, Haestrom's architecture remains as it was 300 years ago, preserving a Quarian architectural style that no longer exists anywhere else in the galaxy. Because Haestrom's sun has overwhelmed the planet's protective magnetosphere, humans foolhardy enough to venture into Geth-controlled Haestrom must exercise extreme caution. Minutes of radiation exposure will overload shields, and hours of exposure will kill. Furthermore, solar output renders surface-to-orbit communication nearly impossible. A typical terminus colony possessing minimal tourist value, Horizon promises substantial economic opportunity, especially in providing new products for humans and supplying the Turian hierarchy. Surveyed 18 years ago, Horizon received pilot habitation 4 years later. The colony proper is now 8 years old. Blessed with verdant forests and abundant fresh water, Horizon maintains a colonial culture that thrives as a refuge from the increasing restrictions of Citadel-governed society. Horizon has attracted numerous dissidents, marginal people, and fringe dwellers from across Alliance space.
I haven't seen the new Star Wars, Sin. I'm afraid I'm not familiar.
Known as the Starcraft Cemetery, Corliss was the regional toxic junkyard for centuries. Ships reaching astronautical near-death at connecting mass relays were sent to Corliss, stripped of every useful component, then dumped planetward to clear shipping lanes. Currently, Corliss hosts numerous merc factions, such as the Blue Suns, rumored to be using downed ship fossils to test advanced munitions. Massive gun batteries threaten anyone attempting planetfall, with minimal defenses against ground attack. Because ancient volcanism greenhoused the planet, Corliss was too hot and CO2 rich to develop a biosphere, despite the abundant lakes that could have sponsored the development of life. Now cool enough for protected habitation, but too scorching for anyone but extremophiles and mercenaries seeking secrecy, Corliss supports numerous Krogan outposts. The Krogan have therefore seeded Corliss with hardy Varen, often kept as warhounds. Varen live primarily on a diet of geophagous vermin and each other. Originally an asteroid rich in element zero, Omega was briefly mined by the Protheans, who eventually abandoned it due to its thick, impenetrable crust. Thousands of years later, nature did what even the Protheans could not. A collision with another asteroid broke Omega in half, exposing its trove of element zero for easy mining. A rush ensued as corporations and private individuals tried to strike it rich on Omega, and thieves and outlaws followed in their wake. As space became tight, construction of processing facilities extended vertically from the asteroid, creating Omega's jellyfish-like silhouette. To prevent future collisions, the station is ringed with enormous mass-effect field generators that redirect incoming debris. Today, Omega is a major hub of narcotics, weapons, and ezo trafficking, without even a pretense of civilian government or military control. only mercenary groups have been able to instill a limited order. The most ruthless is an Asari syndicate run by the notorious Arya Talok.
You might almost say it's a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Alright, non-council races. I think there's only one new entry for it. Oh, nope, we've got... Okay, we'll read all of the Quarians, and then we'll go on to talk to Mordrin, and then we'll continue on with the gameplay. The migrant fleet has little economic base, operating in a state of perpetual hand-to-mouth. While Quarian ships include light manufacturing and assembling plants, they lack heavy industries such as refining and shipbuilding. The fleet has tankers for water purification and oxygen cracking, but the space-intensive nature of agriculture limits food production. A single disaster could destroy the fragile balance. The Quarians earn income in creative ways. Because the government is obliged to provide food, water, air, and medical support for every individual, the Conclave strategically determines the course of the fleet to bring in resources and income. A species who suspects the migrant fleet is heading towards their space often offers a gift of surplus starships, fuel, and resources to convince the Conclave to alter course. As the fleet passes through a system, swarms of mining vessels work over asteroids for metals and silicous materials and cometry bodies for water, ice, and organics. Quarian miners are adept at locating and strip mining spaceborne resources. This sparks conflict with corporations already working the system. Large mining concerns spend millions on lobbyists and public relations, portraying the Quarians as locusts, devouring the resources of a system before moving on. The greatest asset of the Quarians is their rarefied skills. Most are experienced miners. Due to the life of perpetual salvage and repair, they are skilled engineers and technicians. More than once, the very corporations that lobby against the Quarians have made backroom deals with the fleet, arranging for skilled Quarians to fill space engineering jobs that other species would demand higher wages for. Quarians are widely hated among working classes. "The Quarians are coming to take our jobs," is a common response to the fleet's approach. Government. Due to the Quarians' precarious existence and the need to enforce strict rationing, the government is somewhat autocratic. The migrant fleet's operations are directed by the Admiralty, a board of 5 military officers who are advised by a legislative body called the Conclave. Each vessel in the fleet has a right to send representatives to the Conclave aboard the flagship. The number of representatives is based on crew size. Larger clans with bigger ships and more votes form the cores of the political blocs. Opposition comes from the Outriders coalition, with delegates from thousands of smaller ships. The Admiralty defers to the Conclave's decisions in most circumstances. However, if all 5 members agree that a Conclave decision jeopardizes the survival of the fleet and cannot get the Conclave to address their concerns, they have the right to summarily overturn the legislative decision. After the Admiralty uses this extraordinary power, they must resign. If the Admiralty does not step down after using their veto, the rest of the military is obliged to arrest them. Each ship captain has authority over his vessel, but is advised by an elected civilian council, just as the Admiralty is advised by the Conclave. This relationship may range from cooperation to polite tolerance to outright hostility, but any captain who overrules his council without good reason is relieved of command by the Admiralty. Many Quarian ships are owned by clans who pool their resources to purchase used vessels from private sellers. Large ships are prestigious for big, rich clans, but a small ship means status for a small clan with enough personal wealth to afford a private vessel. Clan vessel captains are not subject to dismissal by the Admiralty. Abusive captains are a family problem if they do not disrupt the operations of the rest of the fleet. Law and defense. So the thing that's kind of interesting about the government here is, like, what I always kind of look back to Rome, because it's always sort of fun. I think the Roman Republic was sort of set up in such a way, obviously before it ceased to be a republic, but I believe it was set up in such a way that in times of a special crisis, there would be a dictator assigned. And essentially, it's sort of this idea that... So this is one of the challenges that you always have in terms of republics or democracies, or essentially things where you sort of have this body of people deliberating, which is in times of crisis, sometimes you do need decisive action, and it's not necessarily one where some of the mechanisms that we want to rely on are particularly effective. So, for instance, the military does not tend to have a very democratic structure. A company does not deliberate on the decision. There is a very clear decision maker. And in some ways too, right? Republics, like, the disciplinary mechanism that you have is the fact that you have an election usually in 4 or 5 years. And so if you can't really do anything to enforce the promises made by an elected representative, what you do have, however, is a punishment mechanism that if you don't like what they did, or they essentially, the game that a politician plays is they'll make you a set of promises, you know, they'll enact a set of policies that you know, that's the trade-off, right? Vote for me, I'll do this set of things. And one thing that's really great about the system that we have, because I'm assuming that the majority of people who are watching are in you know, some form of democratic country. The thing that works really well is, and maybe is less appreciated than I think it should be, is that if circumstances change, so, you know, you have a government that says, you know, we're going to balance the budget, you know, we're going to rein in spending, and, you know, that may involve some cuts, but we're going to make sure that we put it on a fiscal path. And if there's enough, you know, a steady fiscal path, and if enough people think that that's a good idea, then they, you know, they get elected. Now, let's say that a recession happens partway through. Now, traditionally, one thing that governments have done to combat recessions, not always, but one thing that they have done is that they have taken active measures to stimulate an economy, to you know, undertake maybe some infrastructure projects or something like that. But there's also automatic stabilizers inside of countries. So in the case of Canada, we have employment insurance. So if you lose your job, if you've been working a job for a certain period of time, there is money that is sort of given to you. You've sort of paid into the system, and it pays out if you lose your job. And so automatically the amount of spending that the government does in a recession where people are losing their job automatically goes up, irrespective of what the government said that they were going to do. And of course, it would not make a lot of sense for that government to say, okay, we're going to cut things even more, you know, in this particular situation because we need to pay for the employment insurance. That's usually not how these things should work. So essentially, when they face the electorate next, you know, the electorate would completely be in their rights to say, look, you said that you were going to, you know, be fiscally responsible, you were going to balance the budget, and you didn't do that, and we're going to use our, you know, our disciplinary power to you say you broke your promise, so you're not allowed to, you know, we're not going to vote for you again. But I think most people would be very understanding that when you make a set of promises under a time of prosperity, and if the circumstances change, then what you want is a government that's maybe a little bit less beholden to promises they made under a different set of circumstances. You want somebody who's going to take action, and so the decision that they make is going to be on the basis of how they responded to a crisis. But with that in mind, sometimes there are situations... And by the way, that automatic stabilizer that I'm talking about, like employment insurance, that is specifically because, can you imagine some of the governments that we have right now sitting together and actually coming up with a proper response to a crisis? Like, I mean, even in the 2008 financial crisis, they needed to rewrite the bailout package. So, you know, traditionally these bodies have not always been reliable in doing the thing that needs to be done quickly. And so they, recognizing this limitation that they have, what they've done right now is they have written into law certain things that will automatically kick in. But the way that Rome sort of dealt with it was they would appoint a dictator, and it's like, yep, we're not a republic anymore. This person's running everything. We need them to get things done, and then be a term limit on the dictatorship, and then, you know, when it's done, then they're back to being a republic again. Although, of course, everybody knows the end of that story. So, but I kind of like that. I always kept thinking of that when I saw the Korean government set up, and I find it a really interesting idea of structuring the society. I don't know if they used Rome as an example, but it's a neat little idea. Although the conclave establishes civil law as much as any planet-based democracy, enforcement and trials are more unique. After the flight from the Geth, there were few constables to police the millions of civilians aboard the fleet, and so the Navy parceled out Marine squads to maintain order and enforce law. Today, Quarian Marines have evolved training and tactics akin to civilian police, but remain adept at combat in confined spaces of a starship, fully under the command of the military. Once taken into custody, the accused is brought before the ship's captain for judgment. While the ship's council may make recommendations, tradition holds that the captain has absolute authority in matters of discipline. Most are lenient, assigning additional or more odious maintenance tasks aboard the ship. Persistent recidivists are accidentally left on the next habitable world. This practice of abandoning criminals on other people's planets is a point of friction between the Quarians and the systems they pass through. Captains rarely have another choice. With space and resources at a premium, supporting a non-productive prison population is not an option. In the early years, many Quarian freighters were armed and used irregular privateers. Civilian ships still show a strong preference for armament, making them unpopular targets for pirates. Though they have rebuilt their military, there are still mere hundreds of warships to protect tens of thousands of ships. The Quarian Navy follows strict routines of patrol and takes no chances. If the intent of an approaching ship can't be ascertained, they shoot to kill. The Pilgrimage. When Quarians of the migrant fleet reach young adulthood, they leave their birth ship and find a new crew to accept them as a permanent resident. To prove themselves, they must recover something of value. This is offered to their prospective captain as proof that they will not be a mere burden on the shoestring resources of the ship. This process is called the pilgrimage. Stripped of ritual, the pilgrim is merely an attempt to maintain genetic diversity within the small, relatively isolated population bases that make up the migrant fleet. If the young stayed and married within their birth vessel, the risk of inbreeding would increase sharply. Quarians are surgically fitted with various immunity-boosting implants in preparation for leaving on pilgrimage. Having grown up within the sterile, controlled environments of the migrant fleet ships, Quarians have virtually no natural immune system. And Quarian religion. The ancient Quarians practiced ancestor worship. Even after abandoning faith for secularism, Quarians continued to revere the wisdom of elders. As time passed and technology advanced, they inevitably turned their knowledge to preserving the personalities and memories of the elderly as computer virtual intelligences. These recordings became a repository of knowledge and wisdom, stored in a central databank and available through any extranet connection. They hold no illusions that this was a form of immortality. Like all virtual intelligences, their electronically preserved ancestors were not truly sapient. This was considered a surmountable problem. Sapience could surely be reduced to simple mathematics. The Quarians began exhaustive research into creating artificial intelligence so that they could learn to escape the bounds of mortality and give their ancestral records true awareness. Unfortunately, the life the Quarians created did not accept the same truths that they did. The Geth destroyed the ancestor databanks when they took over. In the century since they've evacuated their homeworld, most Quarians have returned to religion in various forms. Many believe that the rise of the Geth and the destruction of their ancestors was chastisement for arrogantly forsaking the old ways and venerating self-made idols. Others have a more philosophical outlook, believing that the race was indeed arrogant, but no supernatural agency lay behind the Geth revolt. Rather, the Quarians' actions wrought their own doom. Either way, every Quarian would agree that their own hubris cost them their homeworld. I like this sort of stuff. I think this might be one of the reasons why I'm the most interested in the Quarians, is because it really does feel I mean, maybe it's just that it's the one that's really obvious in how they did it, but I feel it's the one that's really fleshed out and thought out, and they sort of sat down and said, what if you know, like, this is one thing that Stellaris doesn't do yet, right? Which is every species in Stellaris has some kind of homeworld. But that's not true of the Quarians in Mass Effect. And this is, I think this is an interesting idea to play with, and I think this is why I find the Quarians so interesting. Obviously, Tali is an interesting character on her own, although I did read an article where somebody's like, they think she's really overrated and they don't understand why everyone likes her. But I do find the Quarians such an interesting species because it really does feel like somebody sat down and thought of all of the implications of what is it like to have a homeworld be a series of ships. And Mass Effect is not the only game that's done this. Warhammer 40k has the Elder, and they don't have a homeworld so far as I recall. But I think it's kind of neat that Mass Effect took that, and it seems like they picked a bunch of sort of non-obvious answers to those problems. I think that's probably why I really like them.
Shepard, important news. Know you're busy. Have to deal with the collectors. Planning attack. Too important to wait. Just receiving data. Still processing, analyzing likely scenarios. Not sure how to begin. Too much intel. You remember our talk? My work on genophage modification?
Why don't you refresh my memory?
Personally led a team, created new version of genophage, released it on Tuchanka, other colonies, restabilized Krogan population.
Nice job. I can see why Cerberus brought you on board.
Very difficult, yes. Complex work to stabilize population. Mistake could have wiped out species. Glad to see you understand. Had to be done.
So what does your old job have to do with needing my help?
Blood Pack mercenaries captured former team member. Malin, last seen on Tuchanka, might torture him, make an example. Recovering Malin would be a personal favor to me.
Do you think they found out your team updated the genophage?
Unclear. No way to determine until we get to Tuchanka.
We'll go to Tuchanka and see if we can find your team member.
Appreciate it. My assistant, my student, want to see him safe. Malin last seen outside Erdnot territory. Scouts might have seen Blood Pack. Talk to them or clan chief.
So, Johnny, I'm curious, because I know you really like the Krogan. How do you feel about the character Mordrin? Transfer request approved from the Admiralty Board, Migrant Fleet. Commander Shepard, per Talizora Vasnima's request included with her data delivery to Haestrom, the Admiralty Board has approved her transfer to your command. She has been informed that additional duties to the Migrant Fleet may still be necessary on occasion, but has been given extended leeway to determine when her mission with you is considered complete. This choice was hers, but your role as de facto captain during her pilgrimage may have caused her to be more susceptible to your requests. The Admiralty Board trusts that you will treat your new crew member with the respect due an honored member of the fleet. Should any harm come to her due to negligence on your part, this board will take severe and appropriate action. Admiral Rael Zora, Migrant Fleet Admiralty Board. Therapy from Han Olar. Shepard, they say you're alive, that you cheated death. That sending you this isn't a pointless exercise as part of my therapy. They say a lot of things. I'm still alive. She still isn't. I hear you killed Benezia. Nicely done. Another woman I helped kill, if my information did any good. They want me to thank you. The Rachni would have killed us all if you'd not shown up. It would have been right. Why me and not her? Why did you show up and then not before? They think they can fix me. But maybe you're not really back. Maybe I died. Maybe I didn't close that door in time. Maybe I held it open to give her a chance, and the Rachni ripped my suit open, and I died of exposure there on Peak 15. Maybe I'm a martyr, and this is an ugly hallucination before a glorious afterlife. But if I'm not, then thank you, Han Olar. From You're Too Small, from Morlin. I am sorry, my mate. I leave you for a Krogan because you are not endowed as good as your species. Do you fear those words? Morlin's famous shop sells many enhancements online that are not restricted by Citadel trading regulations. Whether you require hormone augmentation, cybernetic enhancement, or genobiotic xenografting, Morlin has many things that you will be pleased with. All species and gender orders online from Morlin's famous extranet site, hot linked from this message. Product availability varies by local trade regulations. All Element Zero products require shipping surcharge, no shipping to Omega. Krogan reproductive organs not available. Other restrictions may apply. Blue Sun's activity trace from Cerberus Command. We did little due diligence on this Lieutenant Locke and his rendezvous with Captain Voorhees. The coordinates we obtained at the last known location of the MSV Strontium Mule have been added to your galaxy map. It turns out that the mule was carrying valuable cargo, including intel of a sensitive nature. We'd like you to go and track down the Strontium Mule and recover that cargo. Please pass the information to us, and you can keep any other items of value that you may find. Do what you will with the Blue Suns. Alright, I know there's other stuff for us to do. I just don't remember which. Yeah, there we go. Alpha Draconis. As you can see, I already did Phi Silo. Oops. 2175 AR2, still formerly unnamed, this planet is a hydrogen-helium gas giant with 21 moon-sized object. Orbital distance 9.3 AU, orbital period 28.4 Earth years, radius 62,775 kilometers, and a day length of 14 Earth hours. care if it's poor, I want my ducats.
Probe away. Launching probe.
I probably shouldn't be spending so many probes on a poor planet like this because I know I'm gonna run out on like one of the other more important ones, but I'll try and find like the peaks.
Launching probe. Probe away. Probe launched. Launching probe.
I will not rest until I see that depleted sign.
Probe launched.
I really thought that was going to be the one to do it.
Probe away.
Jesus, I'm really going to use 10 probes on this thing.
Probe away.
Jesus.
Launching probe.
There we go. The poor ones are actually the planets I find the most difficult to work with.
I have detected an anomaly.
2175 Aya, named after an Asari scientist, this remote planet appears to have been on the list of forbidden mass relays that led to uncharted space. The little data available comes from one far-off probe flyby that reports 2 planets orbiting a white dwarf star. Your own scans yield far more interesting results. The planet is within the habitable zone of the star. It has oceans of liquid water and a thin nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere consistent with carbon-based plant life. It is possible this is a yet unexplored garden world. Orbital distance 4.5 AU, orbital period 7.3 Earth years, radius 6,521 kilometers, day length 31.6 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 0.72 Earth atmospheres, surface temperature 16 degrees Celsius, and a surface gravity of 1.1 G. Alright, I guess we'll go for the anomaly first.
Something on our sensors.
I mean, that's cool and all, but what good is a planet if you can't completely extract all of its resources?
Launching probe.
I will say, so I'm reflecting on this. I mean, I find the scanning thing perfectly enjoyable, and I know I've talked a little bit about how it's like going on the planet and scanning for resources in the game Starflight. I'm thinking a little bit about this decision, though. So the upgrades that you get are sort of locked behind finding these modules in levels. And I think I sort of understand it, because obviously you don't want to have a player going through sort of like early and mid-game content completely decked out in like the top level, you know, max upgrade equipment. But I think one of the challenges that this poses is, for me, the way that I sort of wind up playing this is I'll go to all these different planets. And because I don't really like the idea of going back to planets just so that I can mine them when I need the resources, you know, I do what I do right now, which is, you know, I'll go to a planet and I'll mine out as much as I can, I'll get it to a depleted status, And I sort of know that when I go to a system, I'm going to go there that one time. I'm going to get the depleted markers that I need, and I don't need to return to it unless the game tells me you need to go back to Omega and do this thing that you didn't do before. Now, I like playing that way. That just works for me. But I think one of the drawbacks that it creates is I wind up sitting on this mountain of resources that I don't really... Like, I can't really use because I don't have any of those upgrade modules. So I'm not 100% sure how you resolve that. Obviously, you know, I run into this with Cultist Simulator as well, where I just have a tendency to hoard. But it'd be sort of interesting to see if there is a way to make it feel like you're doing less work if you're going back to systems, or to have some way for me to productively use these resources as more than just, well, I might need it at one point. I don't know. I mean, and sometimes maybe, you know, maybe they don't need to redesign their game to accommodate my whims. There's no rule. I don't even think there's a reward for making every planet depleted. It just happens to be the way that I'm playing it. But anyways, I believe I need to bring Jacob along. So Jacob's closest to a biotic that I have, so... And I am fond of Tali, so...
but there may be useful technology or information still inside.
There it is, and mostly intact. They could have survived impact, but it's been years. Looks like
think that's Navina.
The crash. They'd have tried to get a beacon up as soon as possible.
Partial officer's log.
Along with this anymore. We've done horrible things to the crew. The conditions they're in, they don't understand what we're doing to them. Distract them for 2 seconds and they forget what you did before the bruises show. It's got to stop. I'm talking to the others as soon as...
Repeat, toxology alert. Danger of rapid neural decay. Local flora chemically incompatible with human physiology. Override. Beacon resumed. Pause time, 8 years, 237 days, 7 hours.
From the look of it, this beacon's been here a while. Why would they wait years to signal?
Pause in beacon protocol. 8 years, 237 days, 7 hours. Pause is recorded as record deleted by Acting Captain Ronald Taylor.
That's not right. My father was first officer.
Ronald Taylor was promoted under emergency command protocols. Other flagged issues: unsafe deceleration, local food and neural decay, beacon activation protocols.
Who is in command of this ship? Where are the survivors?
Captain Harris Fairchild reported killed following unscheduled suborbital descent. First Officer Ronald Taylor promoted in-field to acting captain.
But where is he now?
The location of the remaining crew of the Hugo Gernsback is unknown. This beacon has been unattended for several maintenance cycles.
I assume unsafe deceleration refers to the crash. Give me the details.
Following an unspecified impact and sublight drive failure, the Hugo Gernsback made an unscheduled descent at 465% of theoretical recommended suborbital velocity. The Hugo Gernsback then decelerated at 782% of theoretical recommended approach velocity, sustaining significant damage to investment and crew.
Local food impairs brain functions? What are the effects?
Impairment of mental function due to chemical imbalance begins within 7 days of ingesting local flora, regardless of decontamination or preparation. Impact on higher cognitive abilities and long-term memory is cumulative, but significant within a standard month. It is not known if neural decay is permanent. Data collection was not completed.
Why wasn't the beacon activated before now?
This emergency beacon became functional after 358 days, 12 hours. Following the unscheduled suborbital descent of the Hugo Gernsback, activation was triggered remotely after 8 years, 237 days, 7 hours, on the authority of Acting Captain Ronald Taylor. Pause in beacon protocol is recorded as record deleted.
Come on, let's get going.
Let's check the ship. My father had the beacon for almost 9 years. Maybe that neural decay affected him.
After 10 years, it must have.
That's, like, I don't remember anything about this mission, so... Oop.
You came from the sky? The leader said someone would come. He delayed for so long, but he still has power. Some have lost faith. The hunters. They will have seen your star. They will not let you help him.
What are you talking about? You're not making sense.
I don't remember how to say it. He's our leader and we serve so we can go home. But some want to fight him. They were cast out.
He turned this into a
He
private
exiled
cult.
them. So they hunt his machines and those who help him. They don't believe that rescue will come.
Watch out!
Hunters, they won't stop until the leader is dead.
Kill them! Agents of the liar! He will not escape! Charge him up!
You know what, Jacob? There's a reason I didn't bring you on the other missions. God damn it.
These people didn't have neural decay.
My father wouldn't let this go on. Something is very wrong.
Yeah, this is some like it definitely seems like Jacob's dad has turned the situation to his advantage and has become like a cult leader.
You killed them, but there are more every day. They want to fight, but I just want to go home.
She's lost it. We need to find someone who can make sense of this.
But yeah, I actually don't really remember what this I really don't remember how this mission turns out. I'm assuming like whenever I run into something like this, I always assume that assume that the character, like the father or whatever, winds up dead, because usually you don't get like a crew member. The game sort of the convention of the game has set up like the people that you get on the ship are going to be people that you can basically recruit and like use in a mission. And it seems like Jacob's dad is not one of those characters, which is a really terrible way to look at a story, but partial crew log. Oops. All right. This is always a hard one to do on stream because I've got sort of a natural inclination to always check chat, and that's exactly the time that I wind up running into one of the trap squares. And definitely hacking is a lot less merciful in this game.
Can't expect the luxury of due process, but this isn't a military ship. Just bumping the command line up a notch doesn't work. Captain Fairchild knew this crew. His replacement doesn't command the same level of respect. I'm hoping the man has it in him.
All right. No, we already did the doctor's log. I can't remember if there's more stuff back where I encountered the survivor or... Okay, so we've got the partial crew log here. Right. This is the dead end. This is one of the funny... Okay, so I think I talked about this in the Elder Scrolls playthrough on Tuesday. But there's a big thing that... I keep seeing this idea repeated over and over on like Twitter and stuff like that. And it'll be a map of like an old game, and it'll show this really winding, branching path that you can take. And they're like, you know, quest design in the past, and then it compares like quest design today. Sorry, what's going on? You were cutting your mustache hairs that were finding your way up your nose. I was actually asking, Mordrin gave us his mission sort of related to his team member who helped alter the genophage. One of the questions that I had was what you think of the character Mordrin, because I know you love your Krogans, and I have a feeling that I actually probably like the Solarians a little bit more because they're like me, super smart. No, they talk really fast and rely a lot on tech rather than brute strength. But yeah, so like this, you know, it'll be two photos. It'll be one like really complicated like map layout from an older game, and then it'll be like even like a dungeon in Skyrim, where it's sort of one long path, and everybody talks about how linear is bad. The fact of the matter is like I stress out when I have, let's say, this compared to there, and I need to choose between one of two paths. I always instinctively want to look at everything, and I wind up wasting a lot of time trying to make sure that I look through everything. So I'm not sold yet that it is a bad thing that games have a more streamlined way to go through things. Now, I certainly understand that that is a statement of preference. Other people may feel differently, and clearly they do, but I'm not entirely sure it's a settled question that that the old ways were the better way.
Strip for parts. Tech's wearing out. Those hunters must be laying on the pressure.
Oh, that makes me happy, Johnny. I was worried you were going to be really angry with me when I did that side mission. I remember when I played...
Is that a settlement? They'd better be friendlier than the beach group. I need answers.
I remember like thinking, he's a scientist, what can he do? Because again, I don't know what the Solarian special unit is. But even Jack?
These people seem calm, but they're part of the same group as the ones that attacked us.
There aren't any men here. Maybe it affects genders differently. Makes males get violent.
That's possible, but the woman on the beach said the exiled ones came back as hunters.
It doesn't matter right now. One of these people must know what my father has to do with this.
You have his face. He promised to call the sky, but he sends nothing.
He forced us to eat, to decay. You are cursed with his face.
Not the best reaction to the family resemblance, Jacob.
Why would my father force his crew to eat toxic food? Whatever's happening here needs to stop. Look at these spoiled food stores. They've been eating only that toxic local food for who knows how long. Like that wasn't obvious enough.
But yeah, so I didn't appreciate, I think it's the STG, but yeah, I didn't appreciate that sort of military background from Mort. Like, I know he says it in his character dialogue, but it's like, yeah, but everybody on this ship can fire a gun. Like, what makes you so special? And then I actually brought him on a mission. I'm like, holy crap, he's awesome! I think especially because I was playing a more traditional, like, shooty assault rifle soldier. Anyway.
He has a cruel face. His cruel face.
Go away. You are like him. You will keep us here.
I can't talk to you. I don't want punishing.
What the hell? Somebody had to push them to make that. That's borderline worship.
Go ahead, Jacob. Revel in it. Tell them you are the new chosen one.
He keeps us, protects us, and we please him like he demands. The hunters will kill you. They fight because he exiled them and waited too long.
He is bad. He has a bad face like the other. Like him. You'll hurt me.
Please reconsider your aggressive attitude.
Incoming.
I don't get why I'm not hitting this thing.
He's gunning down his own crew to keep control? That's horrible.
Well, that would make them hate him. Maybe it was just for defense.
Stop justifying this, Jacob. Your dad's a bad man. Yeah, actually, I love the fact that I brought.
Please, here, you could end it. You have his face, but you fight his machines. You might stop this. This, I forget how to read, but this was the start. What he promised, and what they did to us. We need the sky. Take us back to the sky.
I really like the fact that Tali's on this, because her shock at a captain doing this to the crew is obviously driven so much from the Quarian background. And again, this is similar to what we were talking about last week. Like, I like the fact that these little moments of character. I mean, actually, in retrospect, I probably should have brought Tali along when Jacob said to her, it's like, hope you like the ship AI. But I think the thing that sold me much more on this playthrough, so my first the reason I was so impressed with Mass Effect 2 when I first played it is I'd never seen such a big, broad science fiction world portrayed in a game like this before, because I played it just shortly after I got back into gaming. I still haven't played things like Knights of the Old Republic or Dragon Age, which I think are sort of precursors to this. But what makes me really appreciate Mass Effect 2 now, in addition to the things that I think improved over the first Mass Effect game, but I think I like so much about how so much of the character is sort of revealed through the little moments between people. And it's not to say that there are big signposts that are planted inside the game, and I think there was a really interesting bit of dialogue. It might have even been Liz England on Twitter who pointed this out, or maybe it was. Anyways, there's a writer on one of the Assassin's Creed games, and they talked about how they developed, and they sort of talked about how they had this very literary, very subtle story that they'd written for Assassin's Creed Origins, and how it completely didn't work, and that you actually need to make very obvious, very straightforward things for people to play and appreciate. Because again, not everybody's got your, master's degree in English and is able to pick up on the nuance in that. And the stories that were made by what I think she originally sort of looked down on actually wound up fitting much better in the story and wound up being more satisfying for players. So one of the things that I really like about Mass Effect 2 is that it still hits all those signposts. So there's no ambiguity. You know where everyone stands, and you can nudge the story in terms of how you want to go in terms of like Paragon, Renegade, and so on. You can make the major decisions. But I like that even though they've made sure that the main points are ones that everybody who plays this game can get, that there's still these subtle revelations of character and these little decisions in terms of how things are portrayed, so that if you do like looking for them, you still have that personality communicated. So, you know, you might just be someone who doesn't pick up on the nuance and doesn't get what Jacob means when he says, hope you like the AI with Tali, and just that little moment between them, which I thought was really good. But if you're like distracted by your phone while you're watching that, you haven't lost anything in the game. Like you know, you can still go on and the story makes sense. And I wish more games would do that. I don't know. I can't really. Maybe it's just because I haven't played enough modern games, but I don't feel I've played a lot of games that have had as many little moments between characters like this one has, and it's one thing I really like.
Jacob, what does it say?
It's a crew logbook. Some of them thought the beacon repair was taking too long. They were afraid they'd run out of supplies and lose their minds to the decay. My father restricted the ship food for himself and the other officers so they wouldn't be affected. Everybody else had to eat the toxic food and hope for treatment later. The rest is a casualty list. A few mutinied over the decision. My father and his officers turned the mechs on them.
He wasn't command material and it got to him. Couldn't keep the crew in line without violence.
It didn't stop there. More incidents, harsh punishments. It's like they're cattle or toys. In a year, all the male crew members are flagged as exiled or dead. They separated out the women, assigned them to officers like pets. And after the beacon is fixed, the officers appear in the casualties too. After. My father took control and didn't stop it.
Anything in there about whether the effects of the toxic food can be treated?
Nothing. But it seems like the right call. If everyone gets it, who's left to fix the beacon? You'd never get out. But they did fix it. And the signal wasn't sent until now. I'm starting to see why.
Does it say why he separated the men and women? Or is it as bad as it seems?
Give me details.
Maybe the men got violent early on, but from the state of this place, I'd say the Hunter thing is recent. What he allowed here, Shepard, I don't see any justification.
That is the one thing that I don't... well, again, I don't remember any of this mission, but I don't get why why now, unless he's doing it as a last-ditch effort to save himself from the Hunters.
We haven't seen any other officers. He killed them?
There were 5 after the crash. Medical, engineering, bridge staff. Should have had no problem fixing the beacon and keeping people safe. All killed within the same week. About a month after the beacon was repaired.
Do you see an explanation for this? He's your father.
Is he? None of this fits. Maybe the initial decision, but the rest? Abuse of power doesn't get any clearer than this. I need to find this man.
Jacob, maybe you're the one who drove him to this. Did you ever think of that? Maybe you weren't a good enough son.
Oh my God, get out of there!
This is Captain Ronald Taylor. Thank God you're here. My girl went insane. I only just got free.
God damn it, it's really him. Just got free, he's covering his ass.
It looks like the old bodies were posed like a warning. The newer bodies were just left wherever they fell.
The Hunters started fighting back.
Watch your left.
Careful, I automated my defenses after the crew turned violent. They keep attacking. There's no choice.
Choices. The list of victims. Shotgun! On target!
I can't remember the name that Tali gives to her drone, but I remember really liking it. Not quite what I wanted. Yeah. Surprisingly, if I can't actually get behind the cover, I die. Oh. That can't be right. There we go.
Looks like the old bodies were posed like a warning. The newer bodies were just left wherever they fell.
The hunters are fighting.
Disengaging friend or foe detection.
Want some more?
Careful. I automated my defenses after the KotOR environment. They keep attacking. They had no choice.
We have plenty of choices. A little late to plan for this.
Nothing faster than picking up on the phone.
Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. How you doing, K5? Sorry, I didn't see the emotes. Great to see you. How are things? I know you weren't feeling 100% this week, and turns out my week wound up being a lot like yours, or at least the ways yours started. Thank you for stopping by. For those of you who don't know K5, I'm just gonna stand in the open and shoot robots because that's how Commander Shepard does things. I am gonna die. No, she's already throwing the drone. For those of you who don't know K5, he is, I always like calling him a science fiction streamer, because it's really mostly what I've seen him play, but that's not 100% true since he started playing Skyrim. But I know him best for Stellaris, because he is the only person I've really done substantial, he's the only one I've done sort of substantial multiplayer with.
He had his fun, and now he wants out. Son of a bitch.
Alright, have a good one, Smisha. But yeah, I particularly like having K5 in whenever I do Mass Effect 2, because I sort of feel like there's a little bit more of a crossover with the audience. Which, by the way, isn't to say that Johnny Big Time doesn't stream games like Mass Effect. He likes them very much, and he did a great playthrough of Dragon Age, which still gives us plenty of the epic memers to play with. But K5, I met him originally when I was playing Surviving Mars, and he has... I mean, I've seen him do everything from No Man's Sky to Elite Dangerous. He was sort of... He's really a good pressure in terms of getting me to re-examine those games. I've not spent a lot of time in either of them, but I really do want to spend some more time in them as a result of watching how much he's enjoyed it. And I think he's done a good job of sort of letting me appreciating those games in a way that maybe I didn't before. But he's a really friendly guy. He's got a great community. Every time that they stop by, chat just gets so much better, which is already a fairly high bar to hit because you guys are incredibly pleasant as it is. But I'm sure one of you should be able to do the shout-out command. I've never been able to get the bot to automatically assign after a certain period of time.
Throwing people away. This thing is not my father.
But definitely if you like games like Mass Effect, or if you just want to hang out with somebody who's remarkably friendly and has a community to match that, definitely be sure to check out K5, because he's been remarkably generous in his own sort of attention that he's given my stream, and he's brought some really wonderful new viewers in. Oh, not at all. The other game, actually, I really should be mentioning for K5 is he is a big fan of Cultist Simulator, which is obviously a source of a lot of attention that my own stream has gotten. So he's someone who definitely somebody you should be checking out if you like that game as well, because he streams it very well, and he is definitely someone who is as enthusiastic about the game as I am. You're checking out his... Yes, I was very tired last one, but it was a lot of fun to watch. Alright, I gotta get out of the death zone. Suck, Jacob. Whoa! I just need the armor down. There we go. Do they normally do that? Please let me aim.
No. With the toys. I need to look my father in the eye here and justify this.
Yeah, one of the things that was really interesting, K5. So he put out a. Also, I loved the revelation that Lottie Bevan was the one to write the endings for the romances. And I think one of the things I like the most about that is following the development, I've sort of seen the role that she has, like, her role has kind of continued to expand, where it was originally sort of doing like relief art. She's now sort of like a really big source of additional art assets for the game. And I mean, she already has all of her production hats that she wears. And so to find out that, on top of all of the other really great stuff that she does for this game, she's now added some written content. And by the way, I didn't want to, so like, there's sometimes like things you want to take a bow on, but I didn't want to like sometimes it's just not the moment to do that. When I comment, oh, my bad. Oh, this will be really helpful.
Sure thing.
I pointed out that I thought the product descriptions on the Etsy store were really good, and I very much had the impression that she was the one to write them. And so when Alexis gave a bit of a shout out in terms of the quality of the writing and gave her credit for that, I kind of wanted to say it's like, oh, I already knew, but yeah, it was really cool to find out that detail. And one of the things that was so interesting is that when the Kickstarter, so there's like a pre-Kickstarter, and the creators can show the audience or potential audience like an early version of the page for feedback. And so one of the only bits of feedback that I had for it was, when you did Sunless Sea, to see the creators discuss the game. You're very personable. You come off really well, and I sort of feel like it's the only thing that's missing. And he gave a really nice reply saying, yeah, I've kind of been back and forth on it, but I think it's more appropriate and a little bit more on theme to do it that way. And that's 100% right. When I saw the overall Kickstarter, and especially the way people responded to it, is like, yeah, I made a suggestion, which was make this like every other Kickstarter, and clearly the Cultist Simulator Kickstarter was so much better. And so, this is just really the limitation of my imagination that's on display here. But what I've really liked, and what I wasn't expecting, was these developer streams, because of course, that was the withholding of the videos was the thing that made the Kickstarter work so well. But to see those live streams and to be able to hear about the process has been really rewarding. So I'm glad that they sort of broke the silence. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, please check out weatherfactory.biz. They've made a really wonderful game called Cultist Simulator. I want to loot your stuff before we shoot you.
You're here. I knew a real squad would blow through just fine. Sorry if the mech scuffed your pads. I'll get you something nice when we get back to Alliance space. I've got to have some back pay coming.
What about your crew acting, Captain?
Total loss. The toxic food turned them wild. They propped me up here in some kind of ritual behavior. Waiting for a chance to signal has been hell.
That's the best you can do?
You let all your people talk back like that? Who are you exactly?
Commander Shepard of the Normandy. I believe you're acquainted with Mr. Taylor.
Taylor? Jacob? No. Not Jacob.
Why not me? Would 10 years of this look better to anyone else in the galaxy?
You have to understand, this isn't me. The realities of command, they change you. I wasn't ready for that. I made sure you were taught right. Before I left, I hoped to leave it at that.
I'm not unreasonable, Captain, but 10 years? What happened?
God damn it! Why did you do this to your crew?
There was resistance to the plan. Mutiny. We had to take a hard line to keep order. And things settled down. As the decay set in, we made sure the crew were comfortable. Some even seemed happier. Ignorance is bliss, right? And they were grateful for guidance, like an instinct. Pure authority was easy, at first. Months in, the effect lowered inhibitions. They got territorial. Rank, protocol, they couldn't understand. We had to establish dominance. After a while, the perks seemed normal.
That's it? You created a harem and played king? 10 years in a juvenile fantasy?
I can't point to where it all went wrong. But when the beacon was ready, revealing what happened didn't seem like a good idea.
What happened to the other officers?
Anders found his conscience a little late to step back. He had an accident. Things got tense. End of the day, I was the one with the mechs. I got a little basic in setting examples. But I was kind to my people once things settled down. Seemed like I'd earned some peace.
You fought over people like they were toys. Things.
The stores from the ship couldn't last forever. You had to know this would end one day.
Dining for one can really stretch things out. Besides, I can think of a lot worse retirement plans than stripping down and joining the Droolers. That was before the Hunters, of course. Dumb or not, I'd feel it if they got their hands on me now. They want blood. I'd prefer to keep it.
It's all about you. Everything.
You didn't feel any responsibility to get out of here for the sake of family?
I gave him a good start. He was a smart kid and was better off not following me. We figured that out a long time before I took jobs in deep space. And And after things escalated here, it seemed best to just disappear off the galactic map.
Till you needed someone to save your ass.
I'm not familiar with that actor, Sean Bean. Do you happen to know... Do you know anything else I might have seen him from?
What triggered the males to change and threaten you?
This planet has some strange cycles to it. I've seen some plants around I never saw before. Odd weather. Maybe some just adapted a little too well.
And if you treat them like animals, big shock. They become animals.
We can help these people. Cerberus can have ships here in days and pull everyone out.
He's not worth the fuel to haul him out or the air he's breathing. He's damn lucky I don't think he's even worth pulling the trigger. I don't know who you are, because you're not any father I remember.
We'll secure him for an Alliance court. For every year here, he'll have 10 to think about it.
Give him all the time in the galaxy.
I've never seen Walking Dead,
Man who
Sean
did this
Bean.
doesn't know right from wrong.
Oh,
I'm
wait,
sorry,
you
Jacob.
mean,
I did the best I could.
yeah, you mean, the game. You're absolutely right. I never pointed it there, but it's completely the same guy. That was a really neat one. So one of the things that I completely didn't appreciate when I first played this game, so at the big finale mission when you need to pick who when you need to pick who's leading the squads, and Miranda says to Jacob, "Think you're ready for command?" Like, I completely did not make the connection between the tension that set up in terms of what Jacob's father became and Jacob. So it's really neat. I mean, obviously I'm playing knowing how the big finale goes. That's a really neat little moment. Survivors from the Ea are being treated by Alliance personnel with additional Cerberus support. Pleased to see Taylor unharmed psychologically by the experience. Jacob Taylor has dealt with his father and is now focused solely on the mission. Jacob Power Unlocked creates a shield that soaks huge amounts of damage. New outfit. Heavy pistol damage. Use the research computer in the Normandy's lab to build this upgrade. Squad bonus 20% heavy pistol damage. Really need the ammo for it though. 30,000 for funding. 500 element 0. And a partridge in a pear tree. Here is something. Oh, sorry, I'm going to shut up for a bit.
Secure Captain Taylor and his crew, Commander. We'll be long gone by the time they get here.
Don't even give them the tail lights.
Roger that.
What do you mean it wasn't you?
Jacob, if I had leaked the information about the Gernsback, I would be smiling at your resolution of the situation. I am not smiling.
Nothing goes through this ship, my ship, without a report to you.
I had no more reason to believe Jacob's father was alive than he did, but I'm happy to know the situation is behind you.
Fine, you didn't forward it, so who did?
I did. Figures. Who else could get into Cerberus channels?
It was hardly classified, just obscure. There was a time when it mattered to you. Sending this along seemed like keeping an old promise. I keep my promises.
Miranda, we'll discuss your liberal interpretation of security protocol in private. Shepard, Jacob.
You good with this, Jacob?
It's all bull, Shepard. Captain Taylor can rot in prison. Doesn't change who I am or what I know. I've already mourned the man he used to be. I guess he was a good enough father that even he can't screw up what he taught me.
You had no idea Miranda was behind this.
No, she's got a good memory. Selective, but good. I haven't thought about those days in a long time. Can't figure which promise she meant, though. Not sure I really want to know. She requires a better man than I.
Come on, we got work to do.
Aye, Commander. Shepard. Thanks for the help.
Anytime, Jacob.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. I think I still have some time, so let's, I'll try and get another... Well, I'll see what's available in the systems, but...
Grunt seems very agitated. You may want to...
Oh, I totally forgot to check on Grunt. Let's go to unread messages, none there. Okay, that's not the right one. This is one thing that I actually did, again, another thing that I didn't appreciate about the game at the time. I should probably be following up with Jacob after that mission anyway. I didn't quite appreciate how clearly lined up sort of the game is in terms of like moments. So like you've got the initial game where you're getting the basic team together, and then you have that big chat with the elusive man, and it's sort of like you need to make sure that everybody's focused, and that's when they start unlocking these story missions and that. It's almost like it's a 3-act structure, but in sort of a game mechanic way. And it's actually, like, for me, it's working. It's not like this is an unpopular game too, so I think most people think that it works, but trauma module, Unity heal squad, yeah, I'll take that. Obviously, I can read all these things out, but at this point, I think I'm going to be quite content to just... I'll just spend the money and move on to a chat with Grunt and chat with Jacob. I did want to see what this is, though. Alright, I believe we are all good. I think Grunt's... Oh wait, hang on, I was going to chat with Jacob.
Thanks for diverting to the Gurns back, Shepard. I appreciate being able to clean up that mess. Maybe not the best way to learn about the relatives, but I'm glad it's done. What do you need?
How we doing, Jacob? What's your sense of the mission?
Doing good, but good is just as dead as bad, if I understand the threat. How long can we last with collectors going wherever they want? Anything else, Commander?
I'm more interested in just talking for a bit.
Already? I'm not big on forcing this.
I resolved your story with your father! What more do you need?
We'll talk later.
Commander.
Grunt seems very agitated. You may want to check in on him.
Oh God, not you. Mating season, Grunt.
Chamber said you're tearing up the place. Something wrong?
Something is wrong, Shepard. I feel wrong. Tense. I just want to kill something. With my hands. More so than usual. Like it's not my choice. Like I just want to... I don't know.
You're paying for that.
See? Why do that? What's wrong?
Okeer didn't imprint anything to help you figure this out?
I see pictures of old battles. Voices of warlords. But this is a blood haze in my head. I want control. When we're moving, fighting, I focus. But here, my blood screams, my plates itch, and even you are just noise. I'm tank-born. What is this?
Well, I would answer you, but apparently I'm just noise, so clear? No.
Edie, anything in your files about Krogan diseases that could cause this?
Cerberus has a number of autopsies on file, but nothing on a living Krogan of this age and situation. Krogan are reluctant to share medical records.
My people were defeated by doctors and labs. They will never let stuff like that leave the homeworld to Chunka.
Joker can get us to the Krogan homeworld. I need everyone at their best.
Thank you, Shepard. I don't like this. Fury is my choice, not a sickness.
I absolutely love this idea of Shepard saying I need everyone at their best, so I have to do some kind of a screenshot of Grunt, where if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me.
Kenny, what has the new shielding done to your power grid balance?
Shepard, what can I do for you?
Have you got time to talk?
I really need to clean up this engine. Maybe later?
I'll let you work.
I
Talk
guess.
to you later.
Do you need to calibrate the engines? All right. We'll take a quick second to see if Garrus feels like talking, which I'm assuming he doesn't. And then we can move on. It looks like we have 2 story missions on Tuchanka.
Thank you, Commander. Rupert put the new supplies to good use.
I gotta eat it too, you know.
Shepard, need me for something?
Have you got a minute?
Can it wait for a
You're
bit? I'm in the
fired!
middle of operations.
Talk to you later, Garrus.
I'll be here if you need me.
Will you though, Garrus? Because I seem to be hearing a lot about calibrations. Are you really there? Are you really present? You want to get drunk again?
Commander, I very much enjoyed sharing that ice brandy with you. But I hope I wasn't too unprofessional. Brandy goes straight to my head.
It's nice to see you let your hair down.
Guess I hadn't realized how much those feelings needed airing. But I didn't give you much of a chance to vent. So tell me now. What do you think?
Everyone's depending on us. We won't let them down.
They just don't make them like you anymore, Shepard. Well, promise me we'll share a bottle every year. The next one is on me.
Are you really in a position to be making demands, Dr. Chakwas? Let's see what we got available. So here's a broader question. It doesn't, like, obviously, so this is one of the things I've been asking more questions lately. I've also been chatting with someone about how to be interactive with a cast, and it's actually never a problem that I've had because I have enough opinions and just general lack of an ability to shut up that I've never really felt the need to have a chat to interact with, though I appreciate when it is, because personally it's a little more interesting for me if I can actually interact with people. But I have been meaning to ask this for a bit, which is how recapture freighter? Oh, that's probably the Blue Suns one. I mean, there's definitely a side of me that wants to do more of the Firewalker missions, but maybe that's something for my own time. Let's do the Jack mission. But yeah, one of the things I'm sort of interested in, and I'd love some opinions if people are willing to share them, is the idea of game series that do different genres. So what I mean by that is, would you be interested in, say, a Mass Effect flight simulator? Or a strategy game, you know, real-time strategy game where, you know, you play some battle or something along those lines. Because when I've been thinking about it, I can't think of a lot of examples of games that have successfully branched out into other genres. I think Warcraft obviously did so, that the world of Warcraft really is the main Warcraft property, and that they've ceased being strategy games, and really StarCraft has been taking that. Although it's also interesting that the same transition has not happened with StarCraft, that Ghost was abandoned, and that there doesn't seem to be any other intention to move StarCraft in another direction. You could argue that Assassin's Creed has done this, because a couple of the Assassin's Creed's games, so there was I don't even remember the names of them, but there was a pretty decent card game for iPads, and then there was also a really interesting one which is almost like a simpler version of Spy Party, which I remember really enjoying. But even then, like, those are sort of mobile spin-offs, and I think those are a little bit easier to do. And then there's the platformers and that, but there really isn't something sort of to the scale. You made a really good point here, Sean Bean, about Halo Wars. I've personally never played them, but that's a great example of one that actually successfully branched out into another genre. Maybe Divinity? I know there was like Dragon Commander, but I feel like the RPGs are still sort of the big driver on those. And what I'm really curious about that is, is that something you're personally very interested in? Because in one sense, I sort of think about this stuff. I can be doing the scanner while I do this. In one sense, I sort of think like this is, in terms of gaming, it's the exact same thing as is going on in motion pictures. Like, Marvel was such a great acquisition for Disney because they've just bought so many characters that they're able to make, standalone superhero movies with, and then Avengers movies, and there's just a huge back catalog of interesting stories. It is the thing that Disney's basically built an entire media empire around being able to do. And in some ways, gaming is in the exact same kind of boat. Like, obviously, if you're going to be spending, you're betting the farm on a given title. One of the things you sort of need to be able to do that is to have an established IP. So, if you know that people like Mass Effect stories, you're maybe willing to spend a little bit more on creating Mass Effect stories than... or then there's sort of these efforts to build IPs, like what's happening with Anthem right now. So when I sit down and think about this, when I think about movies, I suppose it would be surprising to me if you have sort of an established franchise like the Marvel movies, or especially particular characters, and you made a different kind of movie. So I think like a comic book movie is sort of its own thing. You're not going to see it sort of be a mystery, let's say. It's not to suggest that like Iron Man or Doctor Strange or what else, Spider-Man, like, it's not to say that they don't have their own unique things, but I don't know, like I don't really see... Like, I don't see a romantic comedy coming out of these things anytime soon. And yet, when you think about it, like, one of the points about having a strong IP is the fact that you are able to do stuff like that. Like, you can take a world that people know and turn it into something that is... just be able to explore different facets of it and things like that. So, I don't know, like, I think in terms of movies, there are a certain set of expectations. So, like, for instance, like, the Godfather series, could you do a John Wick style story? I mean, kind of, but I suppose the big thing is that when you say, I really love this, well, actually, I suppose that answers the question, right? Like, if you like The Godfather, you probably like... you probably like... something a little bit, something that's not Goodfellas based. I actually, look, I'll be honest with you, I don't like Goodfellas that much. I also think The Last Shot is just dumb. I hate stuff like The Last Shot of Goodfellas. Oh God, I'm thinking of it right now and it pisses me off so much. So I guess when I think about it, like if you sit down and you say, you know, I like Mass Effect, in one sense I sort of think to myself, people are saying like, I like these worlds and I want to live inside of them. But that's the thing that a role-playing game player would say. And I think there's this implicit understanding that the story really would be another, like, Mass Effect RPG. Because, like, when I think of games that have tried to cross over the genres, like, I think of XCOM. And, like, XCOM, there was a first-person shooter, there was a flight sim, there was sort of like a reskin of the original one. There's a cover-based shooter, but it really seems like the only time that XCOM's really been a success has been when it's a tactical shooter like the Firaxis one or like the original one. Even Apocalypse is basically kind of the similar formula. And yet with that in mind, I really feel like gaming, like when you create, like I'll admit, I had an idea for a game which I think lends itself to an interesting mechanic and would be a really good idea, and I based it, like the whole idea came from playing Sunless Sea and finding the Admiralty Bureau such an interesting idea. Now obviously I'm never, you know, Failbetter's never gonna give me the rights to make something in that universe, so it'll always remain. I'm that, and I don't have the talent to actually be able to make a game, but like, it's just going to be one of these things that I sort of keep inside my head. And so I can think of some situations where, like, I personally would really like to see these worlds explored from a different perspective, because obviously playing a Mass Effect game as an individual inside this universe is a very different perspective than what you would get from like a planetary governor. So for instance, the Warhammer 40k Gladius game I thought was really interesting because I think that a 4X style strategy game would be really good in the Warhammer universe, but I actually think the scale was too small. I think it should be one where you are managing planets and systems almost like a Stellaris sort of a level, or even potentially larger. I don't think I've seen that realized yet. I actually think Warhammer 40k might be a great example of a case of a strength of an IP allowing people to do all sorts of different genres. Now the problem is that a lot of Warhammer 40k games also aren't really good, but it feels like some of these homegrown game genres have not been, homegrown game IPs have not been able to go outside the confines of the original genre that they've come in, or they've been born in, and it seems like some of the exceptions, although there's some good ones being mentioned. So obviously Sean Bean brought up Halo Wars, and K5 says modders seem to be apt to cross-genre. Take Elder Kings Forsake A2, the fact that they can pull off the popular downloads telling. The other examples, but modding community should be an indicator of potential direction of a franchise. Yeah, and that's, I think, the big one for me. Like, it seems to be player-driven rather than driven by the developers. And how you doing, No Name? Great to see you again. It's just one of these things that to me seems like it should happen more than it really does. And yet I'm almost wondering if it's the same dynamics as why movies tend not to take an existing sort of IP and turn it into... Like, so, I mean, I guess the thing that if you're a big studio and you're trying to justify a large budget... Like, so obviously Grand Theft Auto is not going to turn into a first-person shooter. Well, I mean, I guess there's like a first-person mode in it, but like, it's never going to be Wolfenstein: The New Order, nor should it be. I think that when you get a Grand Theft Auto game, you're kind of signing on for something. I think, you know, I guess when people were doing like Nintendo DS versions of things, there's sort of something like that. But even then, like, you have End War is a strategy game, and it's turn-based. But they're playing RPG Mega Man Battle Network on the Game Boy? I never even heard of that. But yeah, so I suppose in one sense, like, when you build an IP you build it in a genre, and part of that is you want to fulfill the expectations of a given audience. But, you know, one thing I almost wonder is, like, when a certain genre falls out of favor, I wonder if there's a way you can keep it going. So I suppose Valve is sort of doing this with Artifact. Like, obviously Dota 2 is still the second most played thing on Steam. So it's not like Dota 2's doing poorly, but obviously MMOs are not the thing that everybody's talking about now. And you know, they're moving Dota 2 into another genre. And I mean, to Valve, I think they intend Artifact to be a premium product. I have no intention whatsoever to spend anything on that game. But Final Fantasy is another interesting one, because it's always been like an RPG, but they've definitely changed the flavor. Like, obviously, if you play Final Fantasy V, you're getting a very different experience from a new Final Fantasy. But I think most of those you would still sort of consider to be of a particular type of RPG, and just simply that genre has developed. Oh, hey, Isaacson just mentioned, yeah, I actually quite liked Final Fantasy Tactics. I think it's still similar enough. I think really all that it is it's a difference in terms of the amount of time that you spend going on. But it's a good point that you made. Like, the Tactics games are probably a good example of something where they've moved to a genre which is... I think you could make an argument that it's distinct enough. And yeah, MMO seems to be the one thing where people have been able to successfully transplant an IP, because that's obviously what happened with Warcraft. Interestingly enough, some of the story of World of Warcraft came out of a failed adventure game for Blizzard. So I suppose the next one is... you know, I'll make that. I was originally going to ask about, like, what kind of Mass Effect game do you think that would be good if you couldn't do, like, Mass Effect like this? But I'm going to ask a more interesting question. What is a franchise or an IP or whatever you want to call it? What is something you would like to see turned into a different kind of game? Like, it could be you want to see a Mass Effect strategy game, or you want to see... I don't know, like a Grand Theft Auto dating sim. Like, what's like an established IP that you would like to see do a different genre? And if you do, like, what would you do? So what would your Halo Wars be? A Mass Effect MMO? That'd be it. I mean, I kind of feel like Mass Effect is, and like Knights of the Old Republic kind of play like MMOs already, but that would be interesting. Mass Effect's ripe for an RTS. The really interesting thing about RTSs is they don't seem to be changing too much. Off-world trading companies are really a really good and really unique RTS, but I'm trying to think of like an RTS that isn't fundamentally just another layer of polish on like Command and Conquer and StarCraft and that. The Tooth and Tail seemed to finally crack the code in terms of doing like a console version of that, but Mass Effect Battlefield Front.
forgot how much I hate this place. See the landing pad?
Oh,
Has
interesting.
to be on the
No
roof,
name.
or the vegetation would overgrow it in a few hours.
Shepard, I am picking up thermal signatures everywhere, except at your landing zone.
Something's distorting the sensors.
This was a secret Cerberus facility.
Yeah, they build their equipment to last. Assholes. It was a mistake coming back here, Shepard.
Oh man, what do you guys think of this? Sort of a survival crafting style. You could even do it as like, so there's two ways you could do this. You could try and make it like a single player experience like Subnautica or something maybe a little more AI driven. But if you add like a survival crafting style space sim as a Quarian, because there's two ways you can go with that. You can make it like a pilgrimage story, or you can make it like a fleet that's been isolated from the flotilla. But I think what would be even more, like, here's one thing that would be kind of interesting, is if it wasn't like, so Conan Exiles and Ark and all of that are like pseudo MMOs, or Fallout 76 coming out. So what if it was a single player game, but it was something that had a lot of AI and interaction? But I think the more interesting one would be to do sort of like a game as the flotilla, and managing the flotilla in sort of a survival crafting environment, in which case would probably lend itself more to a single player experience. Like almost you do like this War of Mine style thing. Elite Dangerous RTS that they've already developed Elite Encounters. Oh, I didn't know that.
Get a hold of yourself. It'll be okay. I'm fine. Okay, let's get on the ground.
A big budget Lord of the Rings RPG Witcher style. Shadow of Mordor didn't do it for you, Sean B. I feel like there was a Lord of the Rings RPG, but I know what you mean. Like, Witcher is obviously huge, and the stuff that Lord of the Rings has gotten has not been to that scale. I think part of that is like the time that they made those sorts of things, but in fairness,
Just get in there and plant the bomb in myself. I want to watch this place burn.
I really did enjoy watching Kite's playthrough of the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War games, but I definitely know that those are not what people are looking for when they think of.
I never saw this room. I think they brought new kids in these containers. They were messed up and starving, but alive. Usually.
This is unbelievable.
I don't see this green at all. You liked LOTR the Third Age at the time. I don't think I'm familiar with that one. Be Quarian, crash land on a Reaper planet, survive and craft to eventually build a ship. Find out that was just the tutorial and launch into space to help the migrate. That would be great. Actually, so I'll be honest with you. I would love... So I've joked every once in a while. I think Johnny will probably remember me making this joke in his channel, actually. When people play Dark Souls and they get like, especially when it's like okay, so somebody's playing like Dark Souls and they get to Ornstein and Smaug, and if you've never played Dark Souls and you're planning on, oh my god, you are in for a treat. But I absolutely love.
Man requested operation logs again. He's getting suspicious.
When we get results, he won't care what we did. But if he knew,
he won't find out. The elusive man requested op.
Sounds like this facility went rogue.
He didn't say what they were hiding from the elusive man.
But yeah, so I always joke whenever somebody finally beats Ornstein and Smaug for the first time, I'm like, all right, now the tutorial's done. So Ewan SM0, complete beginner here, but you really love the arena walkthrough without jokes. All right, I will avoid the I'll avoid the jokes, but no promises. I don't know. I do need to
Fighting here.
I do need to
Sunlight through the cracks in the ceiling. Only a half-dead guard between me and freedom. He was begging for his life.
I do need to break the monotony and get silly sometimes on this UNS MO, so I don't know if I'll be able to satisfy that. But I really appreciate that. I actually don't get a lot of people interacting with the arena stuff, and the number of viewers has declined over time. So I actually really appreciate getting feedback on people liking the playthroughs, because I intend to keep doing it, but it's definitely one where if I just look at numbers, it seems like the novelty's worn off. So, yeah, anyways, cool. Thank you very much for stopping by. And also, more importantly, one thing where I like it when people speak up, because obviously it's never a requirement that people need to do that, but it's cool to actually interact with people who like the stuff. And sorry, there was another one. You really enjoy games with a long story. The plot builds up to a grand finale with hints of a possible sequel. Then you discover it was only the first half of the game. Actually, another person I should give credit to for that is K5, who's been very encouraging of the Elder Scrolls. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, every Tuesday I have a VOD of the Elder Scrolls Arena, where I'm playing a Dunmer spell sword, and I do the Morrowind voice. Are the titles like that? The titles like what? Something wants to eat me. Tally, shotgun! Oh, sorry, you're saying that there are games that...
This looks like an arena. That's right. They used to stage fights here, pit me against other kids. I loved it. Only time I was ever out of my cell.
Endless Space Dark Souls, you play as a young character, fight the final boss. Then as the credits roll, you skip 10 years into the future and you play the character grown into an adult. That almost sounds like Infinity Blade.
What were they studying? Hell if I know. Maybe that's how they got their kicks. I never understood anything that happened here. How often did they do this? I was in a cell my whole life. Sometimes they took me out and made me fight. Filled me with drugs, other stuff. Time gets funny in a cell.
Oh.
How often did they do this? Time gets funny in a cell. Did other children die in these fights? I was a kid, filled with drugs. I got shocked when I hesitated. Narcotics flooded my veins when I attacked. They actually rewarded you for attacking. I still get warm feelings during a fight. What the hell was wrong with those people? I don't know. Doesn't matter now. Let's keep moving. Hell yes.
Yeah, I also don't remember this loyalty mission, but I'll admit, I find Jack a much more interesting character this time. I was interested in Jack when I first played this game, but I think I like this character quite a bit more on the second playthrough.
Security Officer Zimkel, Telton facility. The subjects are out of their cells. They're tearing the place up. Subject 0 is going to get loose. I need permission to terminate. I repeat, permission to terminate. All subjects besides 0 are expendable. Keep Jack alive. Understood. I'll begin the...
That's not right. I broke out when my guards disappeared. I started that riot. Things might have happened that you didn't see. The other kids attacked me, the guards attacked me, the automated systems attacked me. That doesn't leave lots of room for interpretation. This place is supposed to be empty. Who the fuck shot that Baron? It's a fresh kill.
I had my coffee, but I'm fading fast. Apparently, I don't have the intelligence to handle these puzzles anymore. There we go. Anyway, yeah. So, for those of you who like the Elder... Oh, actually, you know, there's one other thing I'm going to say about the Elder Scrolls. I didn't care that much for Skyrim when I first played it. And one of the things that is so interesting about this arena playthrough, it's the first time I've ever played that game. I am actually a very big fan of the Elder Scrolls series now that I am playing Arena. So now that I know that the jokes are a thing that are keeping people from enjoying the playthrough, I'll try and balance it a bit better, I think is the best I can promise. I'm sorry, Tali, I failed you. Alright, well, the going gets tough, the sniper rifle becomes available. But yeah, so one of the things that's been really rewarding about it, that I don't know how obvious it is from the playthroughs, but I'm really I'm getting some buy-in for myself through the for the overall series. So it's kind of been this really interesting process where I'm shredding my vocal cords when I do it, but I've kind of gone from not particularly appreciating a given series to like really getting something out of it. And whether or not that's apparent on the playthroughs, I'm not quite sure, but it's definitely been a fun journey to go on. Sean Bean says, you don't like Star Wars, but you were looking forward to the game Visceral was making before it got closed down. Supposedly it was going to be Uncharted in space. That's actually one of the reasons it got shut down, is because
The children must have died in great numbers. Even then, they were part of the experiment.
Bullshit. I had the worst of it, and I made it out alive.
I believe one of its sort of milestone reports, they looked at one of sort of the adventure scenes that was coming up, and it was essentially like shot for shot something from Uncharted, which in one sense I totally understand, because if you have a formula that works, why change it, right? Like Amy Hennig was responsible for kind of capturing that that Indiana Jones style experience in a video game. But unfortunately, you know, especially when you've got such a high profile project, you know, it's I don't know if I'd want to be the executive to sort of greenlight this, like, you know, like, I mean, especially if you look at the way that people react to EA stuff, right? Like, can you imagine what the reviews would look like if somebody does that side-by-side comparison with Uncharted? That's one of the things that sort of disappointed me about everybody's reaction to that, because as excited as I was for the game too, what I heard about the reasons why they canceled it, it sort of became, because the game was never realized, it became this thing that everybody projected what the perfect Star Wars game would be onto. And unfortunately, like, we don't get to live the counterfactual. Like, well, maybe not even unfortunately. Like, obviously a game which an institution felt would not meet expectations wasn't made. Which means that potentially we have a game that we wouldn't enjoy, that we don't have the opportunity to play. But on the other hand, it would have been really nice. I mean, again, like, I think everybody wants a really good single-player Star Wars game. So
It's strange to be back here. I feel like I'm pissed off. I'm a dangerous bitch, but then I'm a little girl again. It's complicated. Let's just go plant that bomb.
I feel like I did not make any sense in all that stuff I just said about the Visceral game. I did not think that was an ally. Oh, here's totally unrelated to anything, but I think some of you guys might enjoy this. For those of you who like board games, and particularly complicated or fancy board games, GMT Games is currently having a sale. I think if you look at their Twitter account, they'll tell you what the coupon is, but basically everything that is currently in print on the website is 50% off. I am almost certain that I ordered like 20 pounds of video games. Oh, well, yeah, this is the big thing, Sean Bean. Like, I tend to compartmentalize these things for myself.
It's a two-way mirror? My cell is on the other side. I could see all the other kids out here. I screamed at them for hours, and they always ignored me.
I tend to compartmentalize these things. So as a consumer, like, I get pissed off at games all the time, and I think companies suck and so on and so forth. But I mean, part of my job is to take and, to be analytical about these sorts of things. So how did you guys do that?
I must have come through here when I broke out, but I don't remember it.
Entry 1054, Telton facility. The latest iteration of Pergnum went poorly. Subjects 1, 4, and 6 died. No biotic change among the survivors. We lowered core temperatures of surviving subjects, but no biotically beneficial reactions occurred. As a side effect, all subjects died. So we'll not try that on Zero. I hope our supply of biotic potential subjects holds up. We are going through them fast.
This is bullshit. They weren't experimenting on the other children for my safety. You can't help what they did to others. You don't get it, Shepard. I survived this place because I was tougher than the rest. That's who I am. You move on. Harder and tougher.
But yeah, so, like, I think one of the really big things for me is that I sort of have this view that video game companies, even like bad ones, don't like making less money, and that it's sometimes very hard to argue that some of the things people like to yell at them for, like, the big thing is that some of the stuff that is like the mustachioed evil producer kind of stories actually are really unprofitable practices if you think about it. So I don't know, like, I put on different hats. Like, if I want to understand how I'm feeling as a consumer, I sit down and reflect, So I'll be honest with you here. Like, I've got Origin Access. I think it's a really great service. For $5, I basically get access to all these old games that I haven't played before, as well as some new ones. I'm a little annoyed at the fact that there's a DLC that you guys say is really good that's not included in that pass. But I'm not gonna, like, protest the EA offices over this. If I really want to play that DLC, it's not overwhelmingly expensive. But then, I don't know, like, I mean, you guys have already been subjected to a lot of my, like, loot box articles and stuff like that. Like, I think the biggest thing that it comes down to is most of the time when you look at companies' behavior, they are neither as, like, Machiavellian and like brilliant as the stereotypes would imply, nor are they as, like, incompetent or selfish as some might want to portray them. Usually there's a mean somewhere.
It's all fallen to pieces. The subjects are rampaging and Zero is loose. We're shutting Telton down. What a disaster. We'll infiltrate and piggyback onto the Alliance's Ascension program. Hopefully, that will give... What? Zero, wait!
Shepard, they started up somewhere else. Ascension is an Alliance program. It's a school for biotic kids. They don't torture children there. A lot of this isn't the way I remember it. There was a lot going on. I was dumb. I keep my eyes open now, and I always shoot first. We're getting close to my cell, the place I came from. Let's keep going.
By the way, sorry for talking about not Mass Effect related things on this mission. I am kind of interested in what's happening with Jack, but it's some of it's sort of hitting for me, and other parts of it are I'm kind of like I'm waiting for the payoff.
We can use this.
Might also just be because I'm getting a little tired. It's been a long week.
Hey, Aresh. It's Kira. Yeah, the intruders are here. You want them dead? We have to talk creds. You promised us lots of salvage, but this place is a waste. Fine, put them down. Then I'm coming in there and we're gonna talk salvage.
What are you doing here?
First we're gonna kill you. Then we'll see.
We've been spotted.
I'll get you!
Bloody Krogans.
All squad, form up now. I'll kill them myself.
Closing.
I am so bad with this pistol.
Taking heavy fire.
There we go.
The only room left is my old cell. Whoever Aresh is, he's in there. I want to plant the bomb there anyway. Might as well do it on his corpse.
Where's the secure container? There we go. Either I've been missing a lot of containers, or I feel like this mission has a lot more of these things.
Come out. We know you're here. Who are you?
My name is Aresh, and you're breaking into my home. I know you, Subject Zero. So many years have passed, and I thought I was the only survivor.
My name is Jack. How the hell do you know me?
We all knew your face, Jack. They inflicted horrors on us so their experiments wouldn't kill you. You were the question, and I'm still looking for the answer.
Looks like you're not the only one pulled back here, Jack.
I tried to forget this, but a place like this, it doesn't forget you. It follows you. I hired these mercs and came back almost a solar year ago. We're rebuilding it piece by piece. I'm gonna find out what they knew, how to unlock true biotic potential in humans. I'm restarting the Telton facility. It will be beautiful.
I wanted a hole in the ground. He's trying to justify what happened by using it? You do the same thing to new kids. Wasn't this forced on you?
Some were bought from poor families on Earth or kidnapped from colonies. Most ended up here the way I did. Batarian pirates. They did such horrible things to us. They must have had good reasons.
There's no reason good enough. Are you nuts? You lived it.
This place was like a prison. How'd you get out?
We all attacked at once as they were taking us to the lab. They would have put us down. But then Jack got loose. When I came to, it was over. The guards, the scientists, and the kids were all dead. And you were gone.
I stopped it. All of it. Maybe the others did have it bad, but what you're doing is just messed.
Everything we went through must have been worth something!
We can blow up the place, but that still leaves him. What do we do with another you?
That's easy.
Just leave me here. This is where I belong.
Fuck that. Jack, he's trapped in his past. You need to move on from yours. He wants to restart this place. He needs to die. He's crazy and he's never gonna restart this facility. You have to let it go. Your past doesn't have to control you. Fuck! Get out of here. Go! He's not worth chasing. None of it is.
You did the right thing, Jack.
Maybe. This room was my whole childhood. Give me a minute to look around.
Go ahead.
Nothing's changed, but it's all different.
You know what? I'll talk about this afterwards. We'll probably do it as like a post-mortem in the...
I used this table for everything. It was like my best friend. I'd crawl under it to cry. I was pathetic. Sometimes I dream that I'm back in this bed being tortured. I used to tie the sheets around my wrists and try to rip them off. I want to stop coming back here. I thought that room out there was the rest of the world. I'd pound and yell. Never did any good. See the scarring on the wall here? That's where I killed my first man. One of the guards tried to stop me. Instead, I stopped him. Okay, no more wallowing. Let's blow this place to hell.
What about the guy? I don't quite get why you didn't have the option of like sending him to a treatment facility. That's normally how the game solves that sort of stuff. Facility on Pregia confirmed destroyed. Concerned that previous cleanup crew failed to destroy all records. Surviving facility scientists already dead, either from uprising or after facility shutdown. Jack should have no further emotional issues distracting her from the mission. Transformed to absorb biotic energy into heavier damage against health armor and biotic barriers. New outfit? I do not see any difference. Biotic damage. Use this in the research computer in the Normandy's lab to build this upgrade. Bioamp upgrade. Squad bonus 20% biotic damage. Standard firmware shipping with bioamps is designed to work with a variety of alien races and nervous systems. By hacking this firmware to relax built-in safety protocols, more powerful Mass Effect fields can be generated. Each hack must be done carefully, tuned to the individual's nervous systems, or there's a risk of nervous system damage, sensation loss, or blindness. Credits, 30,000, split evenly between Cerberus and what I found, 500 element 0, and we're out of here. So a few thoughts on that mission. One thing that I really liked about it is this challenging... Jack is confronted with the reality of the actual conditions of her confinement. And in particular, there is this...
Commander, you've received a new message at your private terminal.
God damn it, Kelly. So she's kind of confronted with the fact that she's defined herself very much as this lone wolf. The world's out to get me. I survived on my own. I caused my own freedom, so on and so forth. And obviously, this mission is all about her realizing that there were other people who were victims too, and in some cases, challenging this idea that she really was the worst one, that she was actually the prime subject, and that the worst treatments were withheld from her so that they could find out what would work and what wouldn't. I think that's a really interesting one, because obviously there's a lot that's there's a lot that Jack has invested in that idea of herself, and you learn that through the dialogue. The biggest thing, though, is I'm not really sure about the payoff to it all. There's this character who sort of wants to start it all up again, but it doesn't really seem like it's a credible effort. I think there's some value in like a confrontation of a person who was actually subjected to it, but I'm not quite sure what to make of that, especially given the fact that, you're given what I'm assuming is kind of an interesting choice. I mean, like, I suppose the biggest thing is that I've never been huge on choices in games where it's like, do you murder the person or not murder the person? Because that's almost sort of this like sociopathic idea of a moral choice. Like, how many times are you... Like, so if somebody on the street comes up to you and asks you for change, you don't think to yourself, do I murder this person to get rid of this annoyance? Do I give them change? And yet this is a very common, quote-unquote, moral dilemma that games give to you. Now, one thing that I feel like would be an interesting tension is Jack's genuine feeling that they want to murder this person, and whether that is to sort of suppress this idea, like what is motivating that decision? Is it really that he wants to restart the program, or is it the fact that he is challenging her sort of conception of herself? And the tension is then between Shepard and Jack, Shepard trying to let Jack push through that feeling, and Jack sort of wanting to keep the self-image. I feel like that would be a much more interesting one, because in the end, the person sort of like runs, the guy runs down the hallway, but apparently, like, we drop, a nuke on the, or no, sorry, the bomb is in her room. And I mean, like, obviously the imagery isn't exactly, you don't need to be, you don't need like, you don't need like a, to take 100 critical theory classes to get this bomb blowing up her past, right? Like, it's not like there's some hidden code to what's going on in that mission. But I think No Name put it better. Like, I sort of feel like in one sense I really like what that mission is about, which is to challenge this character that is almost written as like a cartoonish version of somebody who kind of perceives themselves as a badass but actually has the abilities to back it up. And I think some of the dialogue with her is really great in the lead up to it, and then going through the facility to have some of these ideas challenged, that I wasn't the only person to suffer in this place, and that when I thought all the kids hated me, it was actually, I could see them, but they couldn't see me. All of that's got some really interesting ideas, and you can see this potential change coming in a person, which I think would be really satisfying. But it doesn't really seem to have sort of the same conclusion that the other ones did. Maybe I'm missing something. Anyways, thank you from Leslie. I'm Leslie. I was on AIA. The food made me sick. The doctors are helping me now. One doctor knows Jacob. He says he can tell you this. He could write this for me, but I want to do it. I need to use my words. My words are coming back. I can talk well. Reading is hard, but I'm getting better. I have to get better. Taylor wanted me like this. He wanted my words gone. I have to show him that he lost. I am not weak. He did things to me, and he can't now. He can't take away my words. He can't make me not me anymore, because you and Jacob stopped him. Thank you, Leslie. And what the hell from Tombs? What the hell kind of game are you playing, Shepard? You did the buddy act when I had a gun on the Cerberus scientist, telling me you understood. Now I find out you're working for Cerberus? Tests were done on me that you can't even imagine. For years Cerberus did that. They tortured me. They used me as a damn lab rat. And now you're teaming up with them like some other merc band? I've got my own merc team now, Shepard, and I kill any Cerberus team that I can find. If I run into you, don't expect any different. I don't think I know who that guy is. Anyways, guys, I don't know if I gave this a disappointing ending or not, but I actually just hit my usual streaming time, so now would not be a bad time to wrap it up. I'll try and give a little bit of guidance in terms of what's going to be going on. I hope you guys enjoyed that, by the way. As always, feel free to share your thoughts. So on Monday, we're going to be back to Crusader Kings 2. I still need to figure out what's going on with Holy Fury, but we're going to carry on with the game as it is. Tuesday, as always, so I need to still record the next episode of Elder Scrolls, but I'll do that. And I will take, I know I'm dwelling on this a lot, but UNSM0, if you're still around here, I really do appreciate that. K5 is another person. Between the two of you and like hearing that you've come because of that motivates me to move on. Even when it's stuff that isn't necessarily to my benefit, in terms of like there's a thing that you're doing that isn't quite working for me, I actually like feedback like that because it allows me to get better. So I will try and be a little bit more straight on the delivery in terms of Elder Scrolls Arena. So for those of you unaware of it, so there still seems to be some confusion in terms of what's going on Tuesdays. On Tuesday, there is a broadcast. It starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, unless there are problems uploading it to Twitch. But basically, it is a recorded thing that I do. I usually record them on the weekend. But in it, I am doing a long play of the Elder Scrolls Arena, the very first Elder Scrolls game. I've never played it before, and I really hadn't played more than like 20 minutes of Skyrim when I started this whole series. And I'm playing it as a Dark Elf spellsword, doing the voice that the Dark Elves have. Well, not exactly the voice that they have, obviously, but like something approximating that voice. And it's I've enjoyed doing it. It's unusual. So you will see me occasionally in chat there. I can't stay for the whole thing, but basically it's pre-recorded. So if you ask me a question and I don't answer on the video, it's because I can't time travel. But if I am in chat, I usually respond to that. I usually respond in text. So yeah, if you guys do enjoy that stuff, like if there's anything you particularly like me doing, like obviously I love having ego stroking moments, but I do tend to structure what I'm following up on the basis of the feedback I get. So if I have something where I notice the viewer numbers are going down and nobody says, I really like it when you do X, there is not a bad chance that I will spend less time doing X. Whereas if I hear from people, even if it's a small number of people saying is like, I love it when you do Y, I do, when I'm reviewing some of the things I can do, even if it's like once every couple of weeks, I do follow up on that. So one of the reasons why I'm doing Crusader Kings 2 on Mondays is because Kite said, you know, System Chalk used to do Crusader Kings 2, and I always loved it, and I hope he comes back to it. And that's specifically why I did it. And yes, No Name, Wednesday, I'm filibustering so much, but Monday Crusader Kings 2, Tuesday, Elder Scrolls Arena. Those are kind of the more regular ones. And because the Dancer DLC is out, I will be doing my first Dancer DLC run on this channel. Obviously, if you guys were on Steam, you got to see me play about 8 hours of it already. But we are going to be doing the Dancer DLC on Wednesday. I'm really looking forward to it. Oh, that's cool, K5. Yeah, so I probably won't be able to finish much of the Lombardy playthrough, but we'll probably do more. We'll probably do more about it. That leaves Friday kind of open for me. I've been debating. I know people really like it when I play horror games, and I noticed that I'm getting fewer. There are fewer and fewer people who've actually seen me play a horror game in the channel. We've sort of had a little bit of a shift in terms of people who've watched me do stuff. So I feel like for Halloween I should start doing something like that. So it's a little tricky. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but obviously, you know, October is kind of the month to do that sort of stuff. So it may mean, oh, Wednesday you get out of lecture late. Sorry about that, No Name. I will be uploading it to YouTube, but I'll do my best to do like a proper play. Wednesday was traditionally my Cultist Simulator days, but you never know with, like, obviously because it's a new DLC and stuff like that, I sometimes try and do like little side casts as well. The catch is I'm just so busy that I've really not been able to do like a proper weekend. Doing the Elder Scrolls Arena kind of blows out my Saturday usually. So where I used to do sort of these off casts and things like that, I usually tend not to do them now because I'm already doing a streaming thing, and it blows out my voice every time I do that. I usually, I prefer doing them on Saturdays because I need the Sunday for my voice to recover, and sometimes on Monday I'm like, oh god, I don't want to stream. That's fine. I'm never going to use voice synthesizers to get the Dark Elf voice. That's got to be all me. But yeah, so what's basically happening is my schedule is getting quite full. I feel like Crusader Kings 2 is kind of a must. Cultist Simulator is a must, and all the other stuff I'm dividing between are XCOM 2, Frozen Synapse 2, what else have I been doing? Mass Effect 2, Hellblade, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I don't remember the name. Okay, anyways, I got a lot of stuff that's going on, and chances are I'll probably add a couple of more to the list to try and get a little bit of horror content in. But yeah, all of this is to say that when you do mention the things that you like, it does mean that I try to structure the playthroughs to make sure that more of that sort of stuff happens. Obviously, if you're pleased to just hang out, I like doing that too. But I just want to... It's less about hearing an attaboy. It's definitely one of these things where I benefit from finding out the sorts of things that people like to see me play. So when No Name says, you know, I like watching you play Cultist Simulator, but, you know, my lecture nights don't allow me to come in live, that will motivate me to say, okay, maybe Cultist Simulator should be moved to Fridays instead, and Wednesday becomes another day or something along those lines. Like, I still need to sort that sort of stuff out, but I always listen to that. You can reach out on Twitter, you can reach out on anything else, really. But I am definitely going to be finishing Mass Effect 2. I might have to put it on ice for a little while, just while I get through some of the other things. I feel like XCOM 2 I'm going to be able to set aside for a little while as well, just because I know it's one that I feel very comfortable returning to. But one way or the other, I do have some fun stuff coming up, and then once October's done, I've got some special projects I've had on the side. I've got a lot of other content to digest. When we finish Mass Effect 2, I'll probably play Mass Effect 3 reasonably quickly after that. And we'll see what happens with the Elder Scrolls playthroughs. But anyways, guys, I've passed the point of being... I've passed the point of sort of communicating new information. So Let me just catch up with something Isa said about the Jack mission. She said, I always like the bit of perspective you give to both what you were talking about earlier regarding game development companies and towards games themselves. Oh, thank you, Isa. I should have said that earlier, but I appreciate that. If you guys do like more of the game company stuff, I do write that on the blog, systemchalk.ca. I am late on this month's article. I have half written it, but it's dealing with the layoffs, and I actually personally know some people affected by that. And so I don't like this idea of me doing my like very analytical take on these sorts of things when I know people are looking for work. So I'm trying to navigate those waters as best as I can. But as always, guys, it's a lot of fun. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. And Outworld is a bunch of people watching him right now, but honestly, I quite like hosting him. And I know he's doing Mortal Kombat right now. It's a game that I believe he has a couple of world records on. But one of the other big things I want to encourage you with is that he has been working a bit on like interacting with his chat and such. So if some of you guys are interested, I know he will benefit from you being a bit active inside of chat and sort of bringing himself out of his shell a bit. He's very comfortable with Mortal Kombat, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people participating in it. So don't feel like you have to. But this is one thing I do know will probably help him out a little bit, because he's very friendly, but I sometimes think he's I think sometimes what's happened is he has I think I don't want to assign too much to him, but I think it's something that he's wanted to work on improving and feels like he would like more practice on. And one of the problems is that you can never really force someone to have a conversation with you. So that's one of the reasons I want to host him tonight, because you guys are always a lot of fun to have around, and hopefully you get something out of his channel. But if you don't, that's fine too, because not everything is for everyone. But I'm going to host him tonight, and I wish you all a very good evening. See you all on Monday.